Evening everybody, and welcome to round number 7 of this year's 2023 ASR Supercars Championship. We're up and over the halfway point. It is on to North Queensland and the concrete lined streets of Townsville. Those concrete barriers are very, very close at about 90% of this circuit, and for the other 10%, there's not much runoff. There's a little bit of grass, and that's about it. So mistakes around this street circuit get punished if you make them, and they get punished in a big, big way, as evidenced in times gone past with JP Courier's famous rollover at the fast chicane and some engine blow-ups at some point or another in the 2019 season. All the action happens here in sunny Townsville, and as we welcome the birthday boy from yesterday to the commentary box for the first time in Benjamin Roddy Rhodes. Roddy, not only happy birthday for yesterday, but halfway point is now upon us in the season. It's not too far away before we start getting into enduros, and this is where we start to see some of the development series drivers start to rack up the miles in the main game in preparation for those all-important co-driver events.
Hello everybody, I am obviously back again. This is the first time you took into 26-year-old Roddy. Don't worry, I feel just as old, not older than I am. And I also thank you to all the guys who jumped in the score yesterday and wished happy birthday. But no, halfway the season, and also we didn't really get to be fair, I don't know if it was mentioned last week, but we are sort of in our month of madness with August, where to allow room for the Enduro Cup in the calendar, and not more importantly to give people more than enough prep time for the Enduros, because there's some big races, a lot of people like to put a lot of practice into those. As you will have noticed, so you will notice your calendar, we are running sequentially every Friday night of August for the Supercars race. So first week of August was the Dev Series at Townsville, then we've got tonight, and then we've got another night of Dev Series next week, and then another week of Supercars the week after. Only after that week of Supercars at Hidden Valley do we then get a break for the Enduros.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a little bit of a jam-packed calendar. It doesn't follow what we call the three-week block approach for the moment, where we used to have a development series round, a Supercars round, and then a week off for everybody to get themselves together and then prepare for the following week. This time around, it's a 4-week block of 2 races and 2 races, or 1 round for each category in those 2 weeks, and then the following round subsequently after that, because then that gives 2 weeks prep time for all of the drivers that are in their pairings to not only finalise their pairings and finalise their liveries, but to start turning laps in the server as a co-driver pair and practicing those all-important driver changeovers for the Enduros. The first of which is not too far away. It is Sandown, and that comes up on the 9th and 10th of September for the main series guys. And then there'll be the development series race on the 8th of September. So it's a 3-night extravaganza for each of the 3 Enduro Cup rounds this year. So Bathurst is the second of those events. That follows on October 13th, 14th and 15th. And then the final of the 3 Enduro Cup rounds is the Pukekohe event on November 3rd, 4th and 5th. So the first of those dates is for the development series only, and then the 2 race formats for Pukekohe, the single race format for Bathurst, and then the grid race formats and the Enduro for Sandown. That's how it all plays out in a handful of weeks' time. And spliced in between there as well, you mentioned we've got Hidden Valley coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Development series next week, Supercars the week after that. And we've also still got stops at Symmons Plains in between the Enduro rounds as well. And then we finish off in Adelaide in December. So it's round 7 tonight. There's still another 6 to go, including the 3 Enduro rounds, which for the first time since 2018 will actually contribute towards or be part of the Supercars Championship. It's actually never been points awarded in a Supercars Championship for Enduros. This year it will. So that's going to be a very, very interesting situation for drivers and who they pair with leading up to those all-important Enduros. We look ahead though, it is round 7, it is Townsville, and we have a look at this fantastic 2.87 kilometre street circuit in Northern Queensland. Of course, you've got Brisbane right down south on the border, Townsville about halfway to the top end of Australia, the furthest most point of Australia to the north, and the Reid Park Street Circuit just on the outskirts of downtown Townsville in the shadows of the mountain. You can see it from very many points around this street circuit. And it's a bit like Adelaide. You don't sort of realise that the circuit's there until you get right on top of it, and then you can see there is a few pathways around this Parklands area, the Reid Park Street Circuit, as it's affectionately known, 2.86 Ks. 2 races tonight, 13 turns and 32 laps. The qualifying record, I don't think we'll see broken, Roadie, but race lap records, it's only 0.3 of a second off at the moment, but mind you, it is the hard tyre in play tonight.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point actually, just with where we're at with the pace and also with the tyres. Yeah, it's a brilliant little track, Townsville. I am quite partial to it. My previous outings in it, not supporting that, but I do quite enjoy running around Townsville. It's the least parkland of a street circuit, somehow the least street of a street circuit as well. It seems to be very well designed. It's one of the few times a street circuit actually seems to inherently work as a racetrack. Yeah, the times that were set going back to 2020 with Kurt Stenberg there, those were both set on a soft tyre. We're on a hard tyre tonight, and there are guys that are trying to come close to that. We've had not even the fastest guys in Supercars itself have we seen quite at the top of the pile in practice tonight, but that's giving a bit away. But yeah, it's still pretty pacey tonight, but they are going to be running on the hard tyre.
Yeah, hard tyre in play, and there's still a few more rounds left to go that where the hard tyre does come into play. Bathurst is a mandatory hard tyre round as part of the Enduros. Same with Pukekohe and same with Adelaide. They are the last 3 rounds on the calendar. They will also have the hard tyre tonight for Townsville, and then you've got Hidden Valley and Sandown, which is an open tyre format, surprisingly, and Symmons Plains, which has the open tyre format as well. So 3 and 3 remaining after tonight. And hard tyre is something a little bit different because it's a pair of 90-kilometre races tonight. There is a single qualifying session. There is a top 10 shootout on the back of the qualifying session. And then we set the grid for the racing tonight, with a progressive grid being the required format from race 1 to the race 2 starting positions. And it looks like briefing's not too far away from finishing up here. I think there's a couple of minutes just remaining, just getting the word through that it has been done. And we're not too far away from getting a start here, Rhodey.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how things go. It's been quite a few months. Actually, I say quite a few months. I don't think we've actually seen one yet this year, a top 10 shootout. And I know there's a lot of hype for people, even just to get into the shootout, just to get themselves that little bit of extra personal airtime. And look, we've only got, I say only, we've still got 22 drivers here tonight, which is pretty strong. We do have more that should be coming at some point. I've heard from Phil Boak, who is on his way home. And Hans Brunswick also be coming in for race number 2. So we could get up towards 24 if amongst other things, everyone's games and computers want to play ball for the entire night. But even then, with 22, just under 1 in 2 people can make it into the shootout. So it's not one of those things where there's a 30-car grid and 10 cars make it in and you feel like you're nowhere near it. There's a lot of guys that's realistically probably going to be sort of top 15, top 15, 14, 15. But to be fair, as we've seen in Supercars this year, I think even further, they're going to be on pace or, a 10th, 2 tenths away from making the shootout.
Yeah, it's not too far away. I'm looking at the cutoff zone sort of right about now, and it's very, very close. There's several drivers that are on a 13.1 or a 13.0 that are just on the cusp of getting into the top 10. The guys that are sitting on that fringe are doing 12.8s, 12.9s. So it is an extremely close cutoff based on current pace from the practice session to get into the top 10 shootout. But you're right, it's not like it's a case where we've got 12 or 13 drivers going around and 3 guys are going to miss out. It's almost an even split, half and half, or pretty close to an even split with 22 drivers. There's 10 that'll get into the shootout and do another lap, and then there's 12 that are going to miss out. So it's not too bad when we think about it from that point of view. We'll have a look at the driver points and the constructors' points when we get after the shootout, and we have a little 5-minute warm-up session. And coming back to the format, Rhodey, you're right. The last time we had a shootout was actually all the way back at round 1. It was Calder Park, which was the same format as tonight, with the shootout, the 290k races, and then progressive grid for race 2, where we've had a couple of rounds already where we've had a dual qualifying, dual race format for the twin sprint rounds to go along with that as well. So it has been a while since this format has made an appearance, and this is the second time this year, and the only one more to go after that, which is the final round on the calendar, which is Adelaide, is going to feature the same format as well, with the top 10 shootout, the two 90k races, and the progressive grid for race number 2. Everything else in between is either a dual qualifying, dual race, or a set of 3 sprints, or it's the enduro format, which vary from round to round as to whether there's 2 qualifyings and 2 shootouts, or what the situation warrants. So still a bit of water to play out for there, but yeah, the next time you'll see this sort of format will be the very last round of the season on December the 1st for the Supercars. Qualifying about to get underway. 22 drivers in the house. Couple of milestones that are coming up. We talked about a number of drivers making their round running here from wildcard point of view. There's a few development series drivers that are coming up. A couple that are on debut actually for their first hit outs in the series. But there's also a special milestone this round, and I'm not sure which race it's going to come up in, Roddy. I think I was relying on you to look this one up. But Curtis Igmanis will chalk up his 100th round start this weekend. I'm not sure if it's going to come up through race 1 or if it's going to come up through race 2, but it will be chalked up this weekend. So job well done to him. He follows in the footsteps of Will Devonish, who chalked up his 100th round start earlier in the year at Calder Park. The 100th round race start as well, or race in Supercars, came up at Calder Park as well for the series. And I think Cam Rutledge is not too far away. I think at Darwin he will make his 100th race start as well.
Yeah, so as things are sitting right now, I have quickly had a look at that. Race number 1 will be the 100th appearance for Curtis Igmanis, who only went under that this season, otherwise going under Turmo. And then behind him are Cam Rutledge and Brenton Foley, who will both at this stage be hitting 100 at Darwin. The next driver from there is Brendan Ross, who is probably going to hit his 100th within Supercars by the end of the season.
There you go. So plenty of milestones being chalked up along the way this year, and great to see the longevity of some of these drivers that have been in the series for years and years and years. And you know, the series might only have had 100 starts by the time we got to Calder Park earlier in the year, but there was still plenty of drivers yet to chalk up that all-important milestone heading towards at some point this season. All right, qualifying action is underway. 10 minutes on the clock. Plenty of drivers in the process of leaving the lane at the moment. It is a very busy place at the moment, Brody, as drivers streaming out of the pit lane for a blast around this 2.86 kilometre circuit. I don't know who my money's on just yet. Practice times, I think, have been a little bit, I won't say chaotic, but they've been a little bit muddled. We don't know who was running on what fuel load. We don't know who was in race mode. We don't know who was in a situation of qualifying mode until either early or late, or what drivers were doing. It was fairly close to the top, so I think there's probably at least 2 or 3 drivers maybe within an earshot of pole. I mean, the favourite clearly has got to be the returning man from last round, Rosella, but I don't know if the margin's going to be as large as what it was yet, and that's only just going off the practice time, so a bit of an unknown at the moment.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not looking at who gets pole in the well. Pole has value coming into a shootout because it means you can get better track conditions. But really, the excitement is in who makes that 10 and that 9, and who then falls out and finishes 11th or 12th. But we have got people already on laps. We've got Cam Rutledge heading the queue ahead of Daniel Cox, and I think that is Dane Liccardo in the back of the queue as well. They're all spaced out a little bit, which they obviously can be. Well, they can be anyway, but they are because they're in their communication within teams.
Oh, Brendan Ross
Cam
is
getting the first laps.
Ross is down the escape road already at turn 1, and an early block on his copybook, so he's going to get going here and just slots in behind the Ben Hall car, which is being driven by Debutant this year, and another one, and one of the Super 2 drivers coming into the series this year for his first start. Ethan Knight in the Boost Mobile car, who's just behind Rossi as well. So that's the first mistake, and that's what the hard tyre will do to you around this circuit. It will cause problems. Drivers are not used to the hard tyre. It doesn't make an appearance all that often, but when it does, it becomes very difficult to drive because a lot of drivers just don't have the experience with it. They just don't have the time put in to really understand how the hard tyre works. I mean, durability wise, yes, it's got the longevity that it needs, but it just doesn't have the grip that a lot of drivers are used to.
Yeah, just to finish that thought you're having about Ben's car, that is obviously not Ben in that car tonight. There's Darryl Callahan, who is actually one of our Super 3 runners, but by virtue of registering for the Enduro Cup and for being on that pace bubble of being a Super 2 driver, he has been granted a wild card, which will give him some experience. And he is one of 8 drivers so far to have set times. The top of the pile is, and not unsurprisingly so, is Luke Rosella.
Yeah, here is Rosella's on top of the pile. Here is Darryl Callaghan. As you said, he's a Super 3 driver normally in ASR's development series, but he's on one of several drivers that's on that verge of being promoted from Super 3 to Super 2. And he's driven very, very well, even to the point where he netted himself a race win by virtue of a couple of drivers taking themselves out at the end of the Barbagallo race on the last lap, and he was in prime position to capitalise on that. Probably one of the very few occasions we've seen a Super 3 driver take a race win outright in the series. I can't recall the last time that happened, if at all.
I think that might be one of the few times. The only exception might be, I don't think Ryan Cox. I don't think Ryan Cox actually might. No, I don't think Cox achieved it. No. Actually, no. Cox might have got a win at the round 1 because he was Super 3 at the time. I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that worked
no,
out.
I think it was Smith. But yeah, that either that or we're going back to potentially Bailey Hall. But I don't think Bailey Hall actually got his race wins until he got promoted to Supercars. So
I think you're probably right. He was doing some good results, and he was up in that top half a dozen spots as Callan improves his time by 1.2 seconds, moves into 12th spot on the order there. So yeah, he's got I think you're right, Bailey Hall's win sort of came after he'd already made the promotional jump from S3 to S2 last season. Then of course from S2 to Supercars, even though he didn't win the title last year, he moved up to Supercars. Another one of the debutantes from the development series, another one of the Germans in Stuart McNichol. He's his fellow German in Leonard Grossel. Unfortunately, looks like he's out of proceedings tonight. He dropped out of the server very early on. For some reason, his game won't actually pick up the server in the server list, so something's a little bit strange there. McNichol flying the European flag at the moment. Board the PBF Superlight entry, a number 12 machine. And
yep, as I said, there was actually something that was half mooted to or half planned in the initial planning for this car. We are obviously only going to throw 3 drivers at the car because we've had 3 is 2 more than you usually get, but there is CSK team sessions on the rear bumper as Pete Thrower's gone very deep with the slow chicane. So that signifies Stewart's contribution to the car, and good to see him in the car as he nearly loses it coming into the fast right-hander.
Yeah, he does. Steve Warwick, who's subbing for Steve Burko this round, gets out of the way there. Ethan Knight is another one we mentioned in the Boost Mobile entry, that he is on debut in the category for his first wildcard appearance this round. He's currently holding down 13th place. At the moment for Knight, his time of a 1:13.238 is about 5 or 4 tenths out of contention for being in the top 10 shootout. So a little bit more time to find. And positions are changing quite quickly. We saw Callahan went up to 12th before. He then dropped all the way back to about 18th. Now worked his way back up to 16th. So drivers staying out on the circuit at the moment, spending plenty of time trying to get the temperature into that tyre. Got to get the hard tyre working. That's the hard part. You've got to get the tyre working.
Yeah, the surprising one, just looking at the list of times right now, is 21 drivers having submitted times. I think there were 22 in the session, the exception being Lockie Burke. I don't believe has not entered the track yet. Brendan Ross currently down in 21st, but I imagine it was probably sitting in banker time, but he is exactly 21 seconds off of first place. I expect to see him up in the top 10, and just looking at the list of drivers who are actually talking about drivers we get to see in the top 10. Another one who I expect to see up there who is currently not playing up there at the moment is Tim Redmond. He's currently 14th on the road. Yeah,
he's taking his time to really come back up to proceedings with things, as Anthony Green at the moment is the highest of the wildcards, heading out on another outlap. He's 9th and currently will be in the shootout. Here is Brendan Ross, who's following his teammate at the moment, Luke Rosella, around the track. It was 15 seconds up at the Sector 1 split. That would move him up to, where would it suit him? He'd be in about the top half of the team, so he'd be about 13th or 14th at the moment. He needs to find a bit more time. And still a bit of time on the clock. Ross will probably have no choice but to go for a couple of consecutive laps. He found more time, up to 7th, so that's important. So that gives him a buffer. It doesn't give him much of a buffer though, Rhodey. He's 1.3 seconds off of the current fastest time, which is Rosella, but then the gap to 10th at the moment is only a 10th. There's not a lot in it. And you've got the likes of Bailey Hall, who is on that cusp. He could potentially rise up here and steal the show. All he needs is a 10th or 2, and he'll be in the shootout. Same for Cam Rutledge. He just needs a 10th or 2. He'll be in the shootout. Then he got his teammate, Daniel Cox. He's in position as well for a run at the shootout too. And then you got Redmond and Locke, both on 13 deads. So there's still a few drivers that can yet spoil a party for some of these drivers already sitting pretty in the top half of the order. There's not very many that are locked away safe at the moment. I would say it's Rosella, Seth Brown, who's on debut as well. He's one of the quick drivers in Super 2 at the moment. Noah Turner and Will Devonish, I'd say they are safe. They've all done 11 8s or better.
Yeah, I think that's really where the cut's going to be, because as I mentioned, there's a lot of people who could fall into that. Shortcut for Bailey Hall, but yeah, there's a lot of drivers could fall into that. So yeah, Curtis Sigmanis, good time to be in 5th. Yeah, he's probably still not even quite safe though. But yeah, the gap from him then down, it's Dan Liccardo, who's nearly 8/10ths off. It's Ross, who's then 1/1000th off of Dan Liccardo. So nothing in those two. Foley up to 8, Zach Brown in 9th, Anthony Green in 10th. But yeah, then you mentioned back to Bailey Hall. Cam Rutledge, we've seen qualify around the top 10 before. Coxie, we've seen around the top 10, definitely a little higher. Lockie Locke, he's been inconsistent with qualifying, but when he's on it, he can be in the front rows. And Tim Redmond, well, we know what his pace is like. So, yeah, you've got to be on track right now. And of the drivers I'm listed, I think they all, with the exception of Termo, they all are. So Termo, I think, is confident that he might not stay 5th, but I think he's confident that he might stay in the 10. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that could be a little bit dangerous because he's only about 3/10ths inside the cutoff at the moment, and it could change rapidly with Liccardo losing all of his time at the final corner with a bit of a wiggle, and Redmond's up at the moment, so he's tracking behind Bailey Hall and on his way now to the Sector 2 split. And he'd lost a lot of that time though, so he was looking relatively handy. He was about 2/10ths or a second or so up in Sector 1, and he's lost a good chunk of that through Sector 2, up and over Boundary Street, through the tram tracks, down to the hairpin, second last corner on the circuit. And then you swing right, turning right, turning right, turning right, and then you've got to move the car back over to the right-hand side of the track to set up for this left-hander, which can be a bit tricky. This is where Liccardo lost all his time a few seconds ago. Doesn't use all the outside curb on the exit though. And what does Redmond do? He doesn't improve. He's got to go again. Did he make the cutoff? I don't think he did. Did he? I don't think he, or did he just make the timer before it went 0? The clock's still counting. Maybe he just got home. Maybe he's timed that to absolute perfection.
I was looking at the guys that went through. Anthony Green was running well, but Dane Liccardo ran off at the final corner right in front of him, which probably threw him off. So he went deep as a result. So Green's best is going to be 10th. So he's really in trouble right now. Zach Brown has finished. He's 9th. Foley's still out there on a lap in 8th currently. I see a wheel off as well.
Yeah.
Somebody's lost a wheel through the fast chicane.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out who that is at the moment. I'm wondering if it's either Thrower or Higginson or someone that was a bit further down the order. I did see it flying across the road as well. And there's plenty of drivers that are still trying here. Cox is going to be the next one to get to the line. Ethan Knight's finished. He was 13th. Someone jumped up the order. I couldn't quite see who it was late. It might have been Zach Brown moving up into 9th place. But someone moved up the order as a big slide for Cox on the exit of the final corner. That'll hurt, and that will not improve his time. So he is done. Redmond is the next one I want to keep an eye on. He's chasing Bailey Hall at the moment. The two of them trying to get in. Redmond, 6th. He found the time. He knocks Green out of the shootout.
Yep.
And Bailey Hall didn't improve either. So Redmond found the time when it counted. And unfortunately for Anthony Green, he's out of the shootout by 0.039 of a second. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
To add to the, I mean, like we've said, with where Tim's pace is normally at, to add to how well done that lap actually was, Pete Throwers just jumped in the chat to let us know that Timmy's foot's playing up again. So he's driving a supercar with 1 foot.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say. I was sort of a bit concerned about that.
End up 6th, that's pretty good. Because there's a lot of, you really want 2 feet around. There's a lot of gradual pedal, gradual braking, gradual throttle work you want to have around this track. So to do all that all with 1 foot and still have a smooth driving car, that's very well done from Tim Redmond. But in the end, it was a pretty confident play from Tomo to not go out there, and he didn't need to in the end. He is only 7th, so he is a little, again, with a slightly greener track for the shootout, but he is still crucially in the shootout. Dan Liccardo makes it up into it. Brenton Foley does as well, and Zach Brown. They round out the 9 and 10 for PBF. And in the end, it was just Tim Redmond and Brendan Ross that got ahead of Tomo.
Yeah, so the shootout order as it sits right now, 10th to last, first to last, will be Zach Brown from Brenton Foley. So the 2 PBF race engineering teammates will be out sequentially. Dane Liccardo, followed by the 100-mile man, Curtis Sigmanis. He'll be out 4th in the order. Then Redmond. Then Brendan Ross, Will Devonish, Noah Turra. Seth Brown, the only driver on debut tonight from Development Series, made it into the shootout, and I think with the pace we've seen from him in Development Series, justifiably so.
Yep.
And then Luke Rosella is the one who is going to go out last in the shootout. Well, there you go.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't I've seen the pace from Seth Brown in practice, and I've been shared with a Dev Series track with him for a few rounds, so I know what sort of pace he pulls at. I think he started I think it was compared to Lime Mitch at one point during the broadcast last week, and his ability to just carve up a pack off the start. He started on the back of the grid for a penalty he picked up at the last race, and was, I think, something like 14 spots up after 2 laps. So. I suppose for a show for his pace, he was past Kemp much quicker than anybody else usually gets past Kempy. He knows what he's doing, and he's doing it legally. He just makes himself very, very hard to pass. Seemingly wasn't an issue for Seth Brown. So, look, he's someone that's very much been in the angle for Supercars, and I think there's probably a few teams that if they don't already have a spot, or definitely for Enduro Cup, we'll be looking at him now with only one race left before Enduro Cup. But he's got some mad pace. So good to see him in Supercars, and he'll get a chance to show his pace on a one-on-one basis in the top 10 shootout, which we're not too far off of doing.
No, will be a couple of minutes while the server resets itself for the shootout. And the only driver that you mentioned that didn't set a time in that qualifying session is Lachlan Burke. And we did hear, unfortunately, from him, he's trying to figure out if he can fix his wheel in the next couple of minutes. So he will be trying to fix that up and see if he can get back out there for race 1, even though he will start from the rear of the grid if he can do so.
Yeah, just looking through the chat, you can see a couple of guys from the Dev Series checking in. We got Luke Speck, who was jumping in earlier, while she's obviously here and watching again. John Smith, which I know isn't actually his name, but that will be Brap, chiming in with our mention to Barbagallo about bringing up his last lap demons there.
That's right.
And I know his name. Angus Brown. It is Angus Brown, chiming in that Ryan Smith did win 2 races at SMP. So it's actually last year before we moved him up to Super 2.
Yes.
That is Ryan Smith. Angus Brown there doing my job for me.
Yeah, I completely forgot actually about that last year, that Smith did move up to Super 2 on the back of those wins from last year. That we sort of let that slide because those SMP rounds were a bit later in the year than we normally have them, and we sort of kept those drivers in Super 3 for a little bit longer, and then this year with the advancement to Super 2, we thought, no, they're definitely too quick, and moved them up pretty promptly. So that all made a little bit more sense.
So we can now sort of see some of the migration of the drivers into chat, which means we are setting up for the shootout because, you can definitely sit there and watch it from your point of view, but I think the general gist is we'd like to only have the 10 drivers in the shootout just to keep things a little bit simpler. But we're starting to see migration of people over. So we got Zach Brown, we've got Cam Parody, actually not racing tonight, but he's jumped in to check out the action, and we've got forget who it is from SES who is inceptive, but we got one of the SES drivers, and we've also got Jesse Bennett, who I can't remember if he is still the points leader or not for Super 3, but I know he was at one point coming into the previous round. I'll go and double check that stat so I can not look like an idiot.
He is actually the points leader for that one.
Yes, he is. Yeah. But yeah, shouldn't be too far off of the shootout, and we're going to see how things go, because we know there have been some drivers previously that have not done terribly well under the pressure of a shootout, as opposed to the guys. And you also get some different tactics through the train. You get the guys at the back who very much being there in the first place is a thing unto itself, and setting a time that's a little bit slower is fine, because inevitably there's going to be someone that piles it into a fence. And especially around here, as we mentioned, the walls are pretty close on a lot of the circuit. Where there isn't walls, there's curbs, there's grass, and the grass is fairly fast grass, so you don't really want to end up out there. There's also an easy opportunity to pick up some track cuts in all that as well. So you can definitely go out there and have a bit of a casual run at it, but then you get the guys at the top of the pile that are definitely chasing, those peak times, that glory. So people like your Will Devinishes, your Noah Tara, your Luke Rosella, and Seth Brown probably also about having a crack. But speaking about having a crack, we've got one of the PBF cars, which I think was Zach Brown, heading out onto track now.
Yeah, we do. And apologies just for that little bit of footage there as we were trying to get the broadcast up and running. It is indeed Zach Brown who has the honour of being out for first man in the shootout. So let's have a look at, if I grab the old mobile phone here, we'll have a look at what the times were from the shootout, just to give you a little bit of a reference. We probably won't go into the full in-depth details that we had in shootouts gone past, because we used to look at sector times and see how drivers were tracking over or under. And if we have a sort of a bit of a look here, actually we'll go back to look at it on a bit of a different plane. I think I actually only took a photo on the phone of where everybody was in the order, just because we just needed to make sure that we knew who was going out in what sequence. And if we have a look from the qualifying times, we can tell you that Zach Brown's fastest lap was a 1 minute 12.600. So there we go, something a little bit interesting to chase. Let's see how close he can actually get to that time. Now, a lot of drivers, I think, will struggle to get to that lap time, or to get to their lap time that they set in the shootout, in the qualifying, just purely from the point of view that it is the hard tyre, and it does take a bit of time and effort to warm that tyre up and get it into its working temperature range. So here we go.
Yeah.
Down to turn one. Zach Brown doesn't use all the road, surprisingly. Gives plenty of margin for error. Leaves plenty of room to that left-hand side fence. And again, getting through turn number 2 and on to 3. He's a bit close to the wall this time around. I think this is a no-risk approach, Roddy. I don't think he's pushing probably as hard as I would be expecting him to push at this stage. He's just definitely taking it quietly and just making sure he gets through unscathed, doesn't get a track cut, because you know what? Someone else might, and then that'll promote you up the order.
Absolutely. So yeah, good run, a little bit squirrely through the slow chicane, but that's probably down to a bit of tyre temp and also a bit of a setup thing. He is running as teammate with Brenton Foley. We know how Taylor Foley likes his setup, so I wouldn't be surprised if Zach is running something fairly similar on his car. Good running though, as we mentioned, like definitely not a slow run, but probably not with the full attack and vigor that we're going to see from some of the runners coming up after him. But crucially, unless he finds a way to bottle it at this last corner, he will get a time, and it will be a pretty competitive time that will balance out fairly well against anyone who goes for a bit of exploration during their lap. So that brings him home with a 12.7, which is actually only...
That's not too bad. That's a tenth and a half.
Tenth and a half off, which, as we mentioned, the hard tyres do take a little bit of time to unlock compared to a soft tyre. So to do a 12.75 is actually not bad compared to a 12.6 to get in.
I think that was a very tidy lap, very respectable lap, and a very, very good lap, considering he was only a tenth and a half off his original qualifying time. I'd say that's a big tick, and that's a very, very big tick for Zach Brown. Job well done there. First man down, second man on the road. His teammate in the 074, the 2019 Series champion, has a little bit of a wiggle and a lock brake going into turn 1. It doesn't upset the car too badly, but he took the same narrow approach to turn number 2 that his teammate did. Left plenty of wiggle room on the left-hand side of the car, and that little wiggle, despite the wiggle, is a tenth up.
Yeah, so again, the wiggle is a bit more of the Foley style. Looks like he was a little bit wide there at the first apex, which took a lot of the speed out. You really want to flow that fast chicane, and it looks like that impacted his ability to do that a little bit, but he's a little better through here, a bit smoother under brakes than we saw from the number 2. Slight improvement though, which alludes to how far off the ideal flow that car was through the fast chicane, but he'll pick it back again in this last sector. Really, this last sector is getting the run through the fast right-hander at Boundary Street, and then getting the run out of this corner. A lot of throttle management, a lot of short shifting to try and get the rear to stay under control, which normally isn't an issue for He normally likes his rear out of control. But he has got through the final corner, and he will get to the line to set a 12.8.
Oh, check the number.
And actually go slower.
He goes slower, so he loses a bit of time compared to his time to get in. He did a 12.598 to get into the shootout, which was 0.02 of a second quicker than his teammate to get in. But the teammates swap positions in the shootout. Foley is currently slowest of all.
Yeah, so crucially, as I mentioned, though, he's got a time on the board, so anyone ahead of him that has a bit of exploration or smacks a wall or picks up a track cut somewhere is going to be finishing behind the pair of them, but currently 1-2 for the PBF duo, but as the only two drivers to set a time in this session. But we are coming to the third driver now, which is Dan Liccardo on the slightly updated CRE Performance Racing number 11.
Yep, the Outward Engineering backed car with CRE electrical on the bonnet is on the clock now. Time to get in was a 1:12.274, so he had the better part of 0.3 of a second in hand over Foley for 8th place in the qualifying session. That's much tidier on the run to turn number 1. Uses plenty of the road and not an inch more on the exit of 2. And all the way to the wall here, and a 1/10.5 to the good. So that's how you do it. Oh, the bump caught him out there. The car jumped sideways to the right-hand side of the circuit, probably earlier than he would have liked. Then the next corner goes to the left, so you do need to be on the right to tackle that corner, but that would sort of have caught him by surprise, I think. He probably would have just maybe wrenched down on the wheel a little bit too early. The bump was quite savage after that. He leaves plenty of wiggle room on the exit of the fast chicane. He's lost a little bit of time, but he's still got a 10th or 2 in his pocket and on his way to the hairpin.
Yeah, as things are looking, I think Zach Brown still has the fastest middle sector of the 3 runners so far. Just by virtue of avoiding the bumps, keeping the car turned in for the corner. But a good run still there for Dane Liccardo. But as we saw with Foley, this last sector, actually quite an important one to get right. I think he has got there in the end, though, and he does with a 12.4. 0.2
off. Not too bad at all. So he maintains his spot from where he qualified in the qualifying session, so that's not too bad for him. So the common theme at the moment is about a 1/10.5 to 0.2 of a second difference. So it's not huge, but if you can sort of get within that 0.2 of a second range of your original qualifying time, you're doing pretty well from what we're seeing at the moment. And here's the milestone man.
Absolutely. So Curtis Igmanis got in with a 12.488.
Actually,
so
I think this is slightly ran the wrong way, actually. There's a few times that are a little bit out of whack. I don't think the timing is actually updated to its full extent in live races just yet. But yeah, it's a danger to 12.4. But yeah, Termate says he did a 12.2, but it's a 12.4. So there is a few little timing hiccups at the moment going on. As we watched Termo there, who's 0.3 of a second down, and he gave the wall a bit of a rub on the exit of 3.
Yeah, so 0.3 off in that first sector. Slightly smoother run through there than Dane Liccardo, but that said, still very much caught out by the hump. It's a bad bump, that corner, that exit of that corner, especially when you're on the rev limiter. Will bang you into the rev cut and sends the car sideways. So good run there. He's picked up 2.10, so he is now going to have the fastest middle sector of the 4 runners so far. Bit of a slide over Boundary Street. Kind of what you want to do. Helps to get a bit of speed out of the car just to operate in that slip angle. Good run off that curb, bit too much curb on the inside, but that's it. It's allowed him to sort of really open up the corner a little bit as a result. Going to get a good run now down to the final corner and a very smooth run off it, just enough throttle to help rotate the car. Bit of a wheel spin on the exit, that won't help too much though. And he gets to the line with a 12.8.
Wow, yeah, so he lost a bit of time. He actually went purple in the middle sector despite all that. He was purple by nearly a 1/10.5 in the middle sector, so was hooked up through there. But he lost all his time elsewhere in the lap. So for Termo at the moment, slowest of all the runners. And this is where it pays dividends for the likes of Dane Liccardo and Zach Brown, just to do a couple of tidy laps and just get a time on the board. That's all you got to do. Just get a time on the board, and you never know what can happen after that. You don't want to lose your time via a track cut. You don't want to lose your time via a mistake. You just need to put something competitive on the board and see what happens. And, well, there you go.
Yeah, so perhaps a bit of an opening opportunity here for Tim Redmond. I mean, by virtue, he should be top of the pile, been the next one out in qualifying, having in the shootout, having set a 12.4 in qualifying to get into the shootout.
Or same thing as that happened to Liccardo. Yeah. Just a little bit too aggressive on the turn in, held the wheel for a little bit longer than I think he probably ideally should have done. And then the car just, again, pitches to the right-hand side of the circuit. It's not all bad. It does set you up for the next corner, but look at the margin at the end of the day. It's 0.4 of a second, but we do know he's driving with a bit of an injury at the moment that's flared itself up unexpectedly, and that is surely going to be hampering him somewhat. So whatever he can put on the board, I think he'll just be grateful to get to the end of the lap.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all things considered, this is a very smooth lap for a car that by rights shouldn't be that smooth with the lack of fidelity that he's going to have with his inputs tonight. But very good run off of the final corner. Done the best of managing wheel spin, especially in comparison to Termo's exit the lap prior. And in the end, a 13 flat, but as things considered, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think we've got to give credit to Tim there. If his foot's playing up the way that it is, I'd hate to think what the next 32 laps is going to be like for him after this is over. All right, halfway through the shootout, Brendan Ross, 888, Real Holden Pixel Racing Team. So 2 team cars have already been out in the form of Brenton Foley and Zach Brown. This is the first of the other Holden team cars that are in the series for the shootout, and then first of the other team cars that's made the shootout so far is Termo, and then Will Devonish still to follow as well. Luke Rosella, of course, will be last out along with his teammate here. Oh, a little bit of rear locking for Rossi, and he's gone deep at turn number 2. That's costly.
Yeah, that car didn't want to track at all for the corner. He did a good job avoiding anything a little bit worse, but yeah, in the end, just a bucket of understeer trying to keep the car from sliding out or anything. That said, probably the best run off that curb we've seen in the last few laps. It's a really tricky spot, as I mentioned, but he's done that pretty well. Got a smooth run going through here. He had to sort of turn in again for the right-hander, though, which is going to impact his speed a little bit there. Good run out to the wall through the slow chicane. Good use of the curbs, actually, as well. The nice sort of lift and carry the car across the top on the apexes. Smooth run through Boundary Street as well, and actually he's going to be looking pretty good coming into the last section of corners.
Yeah, the car looks quite twitchy, if I must say. It just looks very, very twitchy through some of the corners. It doesn't look like he's in full control here. Ross is just applying maximum attack, hanging on for dear life, trying to maintain that 0.4 of a second that he lost all the way down at turn number 1. It'll be a 13. It'll be a 13.0. It's fractionally slower than Redmond by about 3/100ths. So he lost all that time there. Oh, and he can see his displeasure, and he's already given the ball a bit of a rub. It's a little bit naughty, I think, as well. We've had a few words to the drivers about some of that conduct over the season so far.
I will say just quickly, with exception of Dan Licata, it almost looks like it was better to go out on a green track.
Yeah, well, I mean, to the point, well, some of the track grip has carried over, but not all of it. So there's a little bit still to work out here. 4 drivers to go. Second of the CRE Engineering Mustangs to go out, and Will Devonish, current points lead up. Enjoys a comfortable margin at the moment at the top of the standings. That race winning streak was obviously snapped at the bend by Luke Rosella at 9, but brought home some solid points at the moment. I don't think he'd be too concerned if he doesn't make the front row for the shootout into the race. He'll just be happy to be as far up the order as he possibly can. 10.5 to the good at the moment. So got the car in the sweet spot, working nicely. Purple in sector 1, 21.211.
Oh, there it is.
And found some more through the middle sector. He's gone into the 16s in the middle sector, 16.805. First man into the 16s in the middle sector in the shootout. And that was by some margin.
That was a much better run through there. Good little short shift off the right hander of the fast chicane as well to mitigate the wheel spin on the curb on the exit. Good run here into the final sector now. Bit of a slide, but he kept that under control, sort of really maximised the speed out of that slide. Good run now through the final corner, running a little wider later compared to the other cars coming ahead of him. And he is going to be the first driver into the 11th.
He improves on his qualifying time. His qualifying time to get him was an 11.899, and he does an 11.86.
That's going to be interesting because the guys ahead, based on preservation of times coming off, the next driver ahead, Noah Tara, got in with 11.8, and then Seth Brown with 11.5. So they're potentially at risk from that time that Will's just done.
They are at risk. That's a very, very important statement, Rhodey. This now ups the game a little bit. Drivers that were sort of banking on, okay, the track's about 0.2 of a second slower than what it was in qualifying. Not anymore. You've got no options. You've actually got to put it on the line now. If you're in the top half of the order, you've got to go.
Absolutely. So now we've got Noah Tara out for 5 Active Energy. teammates with Lockie Lock, who did not make the shootout this time around, but a good run there for Noah Turra through the first couple of corners. We'll be actually running a similar setup to Will Devenish, I would imagine.
Check
on
the
Siri
number.
banner and a little better through the first sector as well.
2 thousandths of a second separated Turra and Devenish in terms of where they went out in the shootout from qualifying. It was an 11.899 versus an 11.897, so there was nothing in it between the two opposing Mustangs, but Turra's thrown it all the way in the middle sector. He's lost nearly 3 tenths actually, gone backwards the other direction, so he'll track right now in behind Will Devenish in this order. So this is lending the theory that we were thinking about earlier on, that there's about a 2/10 of a second degradation in the track from qualifying to the shootout. And this is playing out now for Turra, unless he's got anything in the final sector. He was purple through the middle through the first sector, but yeah, he was slower by the nearly 3/10 through the second sector, and he comes up P2 by 3/10 of a second. So not all bad news. He's only gone from one side of at worst, he's gone from one side of the second row of the grid to the opposite side of the grid on the same row.
Absolutely. That is based on the next two runners doing faster, which we know we're likely to see from the last place runner, but the curious wild card here now is Seth Brown. This is not only his first round in the ASR Supercars Championship, but it's also his first top 10 shootout, having not run these in Dev Series. So very much a whole new position for him. Also only his second round racing on the hard tyres. So very interesting to see how this kid goes.
Absolutely, and just like Aladdin, it's a whole new world for this guy, Seth Brown, just coming down to the first sector split, and he's in the game at the moment. He's only 3/4 of a tenth behind Will Devenish, so this will set this one up nicely. How does he go through the middle sector? Tracks a little bit wide of the curb at the first part of the chicane, gets it right through the second part of the chicane, uses all the run off-road. How's the number? Lost 3/10 of a second, so it's tracking like Noah Turra. He was in a good spot at sector 1, but just not aggressive enough through the second sector of the lap. Up and over the tram line, uses all the road, out to the side of the circuit, right hard up against the concrete fence, using every bit of road he possibly can. Slight wiggle as he applies the throttle on the exit of turn 11 up through 12 and now to the final corner, and the number will appear very, very shortly, and I think it's going to be somewhere behind Devenish, but in between Devenish and Turra. So he's showing his stripes here. He's in the game and probably in with a good shot of a good result in the race to follow. And now all eyes now turn to the man who set the quickest time in qualifying, and can he repeat in the shootout?
Yeah, that second sector is really going to be crucial. That said, that does imply that Luke won't have the strength needed in sector 1 and sector 3. So here he goes on that lap, starting now down through turn 2. Very composed looking car from Rosella. Bit of a contrast actually to his teammate in Ross. But very strong run so far into the first sector, and he's good by not far off the 10th. Yeah, good number. Very, very good number. Purple sector 1. It was a 21.122, just fractionally quicker than what both Devenish and Turra managed to achieve. He's very wide. That'll be a strike. Be a cut. Yeah, if it hasn't, it's kept going. The numbers kept going, so he must have cleared the throttle enough to keep the timer going to avoid the track cut, but that will be costly. So he's gone from nearly a tenth up to 2/10 down. So I think that might be all that's written there for Luke Rosella. I think in the best case, he might be starting on the outside of the front row. He might be starting second row here, but that was a very, very unusual mistake. Just push, as you said, Rhodey, it was all going to happen in the middle sector. We'll check the number when he gets to the line here to see if he's been able to recover some of it. But he recovers to the front. How did he do that? How on earth did he do that? I'd like to say I'm surprised, but like we've watched this guy for a couple of years now. Like he's got an uncanny ability amongst only a few others to get it back out of the cars. He's been rusty. This is only his second round back in a supercar, but I can't say I'm too surprised. He did have a big mountain to climb there, but yeah, to lose 3/10 to rein back, what is that essentially? Yeah, to rein back 3/10 to that last sector. I'd like, yeah,
It basically turned it up. So if you look at the best final sector time in that one was Seth Brown with a 33.465, and Devenish's time was a 0.584. But it's just, where did the time come from? It was a 33.339, and I thought all for money, all short for money, based on what we'd seen through development series and a whole bunch of other ones, that where he went wide, unless you clear the throttle and get a track cut there, you're a goner.
Yeah, I think he would have been very, very close. We've seen a couple of guys, Foley, I think last year, the year before, pick up a double cut through there. I know Scott Murrell picked up one in Dev Series. I'm pretty sure it was Murrell in the Dev Series last week. It's a very easy place to get even a double cut or even a single cut, because that curb is inviting. It's a nice big patch of curb that's very flat. It's almost as grippy as the racetrack, and it very much helps to widen the corner and swing it through. I wasn't surprised he ended up out there, because he was the only driver, I think, of note who was shifting up to fourth before the apex of the right-hander, which you're only shifting up to fourth if you're carrying enough speed and you're in the right power band for it. So that sort of belied, or sort of threw into the public eye where his speed was at. But yeah, to come back in the last sector, I'm not too surprised. That last sector is probably, I mean, the entire track's very technical. Last sector especially, it's all about just getting on that throttle, managing the wheel spin, and you've got to give up somewhere. Normally, you got to give up a little bit of time somewhere to avoid spinning the car out, and he's just worked out how to do that while giving up the minimum amount of time.
Yeah, I'm with some of the guys in the chat right now. I'm looking at them going, how on, like a few drivers I agree with, is like, how on earth is that not a track cut? You know, you've gone that wide, but I mean, he did lose time in that sector. That was the thing.
Yeah.
That's the part that sort of, I think, belittles belief, is that, you know, how on earth did he actually manage to do that? But it's a simple fact of, if you know how the system works and you clear the throttle, you actually can work out how to make it happen. All you've got to do is register the fact that you have lost time in that middle sector somehow or enough, that doesn't trigger the cut, and it happens. So that's as simple as it is. But all the time, I reckon the only spot, Rody, that you can probably gain a lot of that time is going to be through that, because the second sector comes up fairly quickly. Just before that chicane where he made that mistake. So you haven't got a lot of time to react. You've got to just turn around and go, well, the only spot I can really get this is under braking for the hairpin, or being super, super committed over Boundary Street, over that hump in the road, and make the time. So to his credit, he's done a really good job, and that's all we can really say about it. We won't really know for sure until we put it all together. But what we do know for sure is, at the moment, he is on the top of the pile while we set this grid for race one. And at that point, while we do that, we can have a look at the driver standings. Here you go,
Absolutely.
Rody. Over to you.
Alrighty. So flicking over to the standings, not a surprise, we've already mentioned it already, and as we've said since the start of the season, top of the pile is Will Devenish for Siri Engineering. That said, sort of he's going to have that opportunity sort of bit into as we go through the season. Even as tonight, as we've seen from the pace of people like Noah Tara, people like Seth Brown, although the interesting bit will be where they come into the factoring on the race pace. But at the moment, Will Devenish is top of the pile. Tim Redmond in second. He's got a bit of work actually to defend from the 100th race man, Chodo Segmanis. The gap is, it's 30-odd points, so it's not something that's going to disappear overnight. That said, that is based on Tim doing his usual pace and Tomo doing his usual pace. And Tomo's had a very rocky season. You know, I think last round out at the bend, he averaged something like a 12th place finish compared to Tim, who averaged just past third. So that very much free kicks back Timmy's way as Timmy's trying to get back into it. Keep in mind, Timmy is running with one round missing for the season. But what that does mean is if he makes every round from that point onwards and gets to the end close enough to Will, he won't have a drop round, whereas Will will. So I don't know where that plays into it. That said, I think Will actually... No, I don't think Will's missed a round. No, Will hasn't missed a round. He's just come into a round with no practice, as things sit currently. But I'm not sure if he was going to miss a round at some point in this season. So that might go back the other way. But Kosek Minus in third, which we'll get to teams, but obviously with Will and Tomo first and third, that puts them at the top of the teams pile. Noah Tara in fourth, which isn't really a surprise. We're seeing his pace, in the shootouts. getting good runs in qualifying, getting decent results in racing. Very much sort of a quiet achiever, but he's picking up podiums where he can. Brendan Ross is the first of the Holden drivers in 5th place. And for someone who keeps arguing, I'm only the second slowest guy on the grid, he's done a good job 2 years in a row of proving himself wrong with that.
Yeah, that
Brendan
argument's
Foley,
wearing a bit thin now, isn't it?
It is wearing a bit thin.
We talk about the development series drivers sort of saying, they're being joking about other people being promoted, but I think the Rossi joke's sort of starting to wear a bit thin.
It is. Brendan Foley up in 6th place, which sort of really shows more the consistency of Foley than any outright burst of speed. He's been running pretty well, but sort of as much as he'd like to get back to the 2019 days of old where he was running at the front, him and Phil Boak 1-2, the pace has just moved on a bit from where Foley's been running at, and he sets aside the time that he can, but he's a busy man, as to be fair, a lot of people are. And so he's doing what he can in the rig. He's actually got a good little battle on at the moment in the points with his teammate of sorts in Leonard Grossel, who did actually miss, I think, a round or two. So Grossel would have the potential of coming past Foley if not for being unable to connect to tonight's server for whatever reason. So we'll sit down and diagnose that over the week. To round out the rest of the 10, Lockie Lock in 8th. Obviously not a strong performance to me in qualifying. In general, his qualifyings haven't been great recently, but he's been able to bring it back in the race. Lewis Wedding still sitting in 9th. He'll start to slip down the order, continue to slip down the order. Next time he'll be scoring points as a driver will be the Enduros. He is penciled in for a car. And Dane Liccardo in 10th, who is actually coming off the back of a sort of a reinvention of his season with a commitment that was going to drag him out of racing disappearing, which the advantage is he can come back for racing. So he picked up a pair of 7s and a 6th at the Bend last time out, and he's been running pretty well again tonight from what we've seen. And yeah, pretty good pace from those guys in the top 10. Good battles out there. The exception in terms of the gaps being Will Devonish up front, but again, with Luke Rosella jumping in, with Seth Brown in tonight, and probably Seth Brown probably not just in tonight, the way his pace is going, they'll start to buy into that margin for him.
Yeah, they certainly do. And then the one that's on that sheet there at the moment is Lewis Wedding, who's in free fall at the moment because he's no longer driving this season. So Liccardo's set probably to overtake him tonight, depending how his results go. And then behind Liccardo, only by 4 points, is Daniel Cox for the second of the CR, or the first of the CRE Anson Motorsport cars. And then Peter Thrower, who's on 700, and Rutledge on 676. So over the next few rounds, we expect to see that Wedding will be off the top 10 list there, and then there'll be some new faces replacing him there as well. And then you're right, if Grossel was here tonight, I was looking forward to seeing what he could actually do, because he's starting to eat points out of Brendan Ross and Brenton Foley, and then this effectively becomes his drop round as it sits right now with 0 points. And we go over the other side and we have a look at the team standings. It's much the same as it has been all season. The CRE Engineering Mustangs are absolutely dominating at the moment, but this is the reason why Luke Rosella was sort of drafted in, was not really to sort of go for the championship, but to help the team's championship try and close that margin down. And at the Bend, that's exactly what they did. They finished much better on the road overall than the CRE drivers. Rosella finished ahead of Devonish on all 3 occasions, and then on a couple of occasions, Ross managed to finish ahead of Egmanis as well. So that did bring that margin down, but it needs to come down a lot more than that. That's the important part of the puzzle. And when you get to the teams championship, when it comes to enduro season, the bit that I don't know right now is that if you've got 2 fast drivers, like for example Ross and Rosella, they might share a car for the enduros, but I know that they would both get 300 points each if they were to win a race. For example, like say for example they won the Bathurst 500, they get 300 points for that race win each, but then I don't know how that translates into a teams championship because they're in the same car. So
I think their standing for teams is that the teams is the car for enduros rather than the drivers. So if both drivers win, they score 300 points, but the car will only score 300 points, which is why entries are recognised if a team name stays the same, but a car number can change for an entry. But for example, the Furin and CERN Rensport PBF Commodore will be running under the 125 for the enduros. It's as things sit currently, but it will be recognised as a 661.
Yeah, that's right.
In the point scale. Sorry, 661, 666.
666.
But yes, it should be recognised as 666.
That's right. So there we go. All right. So with all that set aside, and we now turn our attention to race number 1 for this evening. So we're just waiting on drivers to form up for the grid. First of 32 laps tonight. So development series drivers, they ran 27 laps for their 75k races, and they had stops as well. And we do have a bit to learn from what they went through over the course of those two 27-lap races. So we'll talk to you more about that in a few moments' time when we bring all the track action to you. So race number 16 of the championship season.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we are not far off of hitting the halfway mark. It doesn't quite feel it because we're already in August, but it's just down to the weighting of where the races are and also the weighting of where the race distance is at in terms of how many miles, or how many miles, we're not Americans, how many kilometres we're doing this season.
That's right. Yeah, we were debating this at the bend about, is it halfway for races? Is it halfway when it gets to rounds, or is it halfway for total distance driven? I don't think anybody really has the correct answer. There's 3 different interpretations and 3 different ways you could argue the point. We've got everybody on track. It's the important bit. 21 cars starting this race. The only one that's not is Lockie Burke, who's got some wheel dramas at the moment as the field gets underway for the formation laps.
So starting from pole is Luke Rosella. Not a surprise in the end, but he did have to work for it with that middle sector in the shootout, but he will start from pole position for the real Holden Pixel Racing team. Starting alongside him, not an unfamiliar feeling for him, is Will Devenish. That said, I think he did do better than at the bend. He is actually starting on the same row as Luke Rosella, and probably on the better side of the grid coming into turn 2, but he'll be lined up for Series Engineering. Third is Seth Brown, the first of the Dev Series wildcards running for Monster Energy Racing. Very strong performance for him in the shootout. We'll see how that goes into race pace, with Noah Turra in 4th for Amped Up Racing by CRE. Dan Liccardo in 5th with his slightly modified Series Performance Racing at number 11 this round, with Zach Brown leading the PBF Race Engineering Commodores with his teammate behind him in 7th. 8th is the milestone man, Kursing Marnus, for race number 100, with Tim Redmond behind him in 9th, and Brendan Ross lining up in the back end of the top 10, the second of the real Holden Pixel Racing team Commodores. Then we get to the rest of the drivers. So Anthony Green lines from 11th, the second of the wildcards, nearly made the shootout, wasn't far off, with Lockie Lock in 12th, the second of the Amped Up Racing Mustangs. 13th is Bailey Hall. All things did actually a pretty good run for him in qualifying, from what we've seen from him this season, with Ethan Knight running from 14th in the Erebus Boost Mobile Racing Commodore. 15th is Cam Rutledge, the first of the Series Anson Motorsport Commodores, with his teammate Daniel Cox just behind him in 16th. 17th is Steve Voigt filling in again at Series Performance Racing, with Steve Burko out of the count, with Daryl Callahan in 18th in the Luke McHugh Racing Monster Truck Commodore. 19th is Pete Thrower for Beyond Racing. He'll be doing a bit of work from the back of the grid, with Stuart McNichol filling in for PBF Motorsport in P number 20. 21st is Nathan Higginson for Beyond Racing Young Guns, and currently the last driver on the grid, with Lockie Burke not making the start with his wheel dramas.
Certainly, as last few drivers just pulling into position here as we await the starters' lights. I think there's 1 or 2 drivers maybe slightly out of position here. There we go. Everything is set and in order here as we get set for race 16 of the championship from Townsville, the Reid Park Street Circuit, and we are underway here in ASR Supercars for round 7, and an even start off the front row of the grid. In fact, I think Devenish just noses ahead at the start here, so that's one of his better starts as they head towards turn 1. There's one of the PBF cars in the fence. There's several cars giving the fence a rub through the fast kick at turn number 1, and Devenish will pop out at turn 1 and 2 with the advantage, but still with the Pixel Holden Racing Team machine over his left rear quarter panel as they get into 3. Finally consolidates position, and one of the PBF cars has gone down the escape road at 3.
Yeah, that will be Brenton Foley running deep. I'm not sure if he was assisted or just maybe had to get out of something that he was stuck in there. It was very heavy action in the mid-pack run. This is 32-lap race. You don't win on lap number 1. But yeah, Will Devenish has finally managed to clear away from Luke Rosella. Seth Brown in 3rd, more or less tacking onto the back of the train, not really trying to buy in just yet. really trying to see where the guys in front are at pace-wise and maybe where he can capitalise from there as Luke Rosella puts a nose up the inside into the hairpin, but just doesn't quite commit to it.
No, I think you're right there, and I think it looks like Foley was actually assisted down the escape road here as we cut to a bit of a replay just to see what happened, because I did see there was a redress actually going on. And you can see here, I think it involves Igmanis. Yeah, Igmanis has escorted him down the escape road, and then when Foley got it turned around, Igmanis was waiting for him to redress. So minor contact, nothing too serious, but unfortunately for Foley, has cruelled the start to his race. So he's going to look from a strategy point of view here, as now Devonish is getting mugged at turn 2. So Rosella
nearly
through.
2 for 1.
Yeah, nearly a 2 for 1, with Rosella going through and Brown looking to eye off the opportunity that presented itself, but thinks better of it, pulls back into line, and he'll wait for another opportunity with Tara and Liccardo still in 4th and 5th. So not much has changed in the order apart from Foley going down the order by virtue of being escorted off the road, and Igmanis just behind him as well. They're the last 2 cars on the road. That actually brings Ethan Knight up into the top 10. It brings Daniel Cox up into the top 10 because he started, what, about 13th or 14th or something?
I think he was 15th or 16th, so it's a very strong start from Coxie.
He's really flown up the order. He's had a really good opening lap. And likewise for Nathan Higginson as well. I've noticed he's moved up the order a bit. He's actually gained 7 spots on the opening lap and a half, so he's had a stellar start to this race.
Yeah, he's caught up to the back of the train, sort of around to train forming now behind the battling pair of Ethan Knight and Anthony Green, both wildcards, both having raced each other in Dev Series. Anthony Green a little further up the field in Dev Series.
Oh, he go in the wall.
Higginson.
There he goes. And he's got to be careful here reversing. Callahan was on the move there as well. He's trying to flick spin that car. He's going to have to go to the back of the field here and turn around. Well, I was about to have a look at that battle that was going on between Knight and Green. And then you got Bailey Hall buying into that as well. And then Higginson went around. Here is that battle that we were just referring to. Green holding sway for the moment. Hall's managed to pick off Ethan Knight through this sequence of corners as well. And Redmond's gone backwards as well. He's gone all the way back to 15th place after that start. So again, he's just got that injury, going to be looking to try and bring himself just home in some points with a straight car.
Absolutely. I think Redmond's sort of focus at this point is probably looking more strategy than trying to win or get a position on outright pace. And as we saw with Dev Series, and if Dev Series is anything to go by, this might very much be I'm not going to say the word, but it might be a very interrupted race by virtue of a lack of green flag. So based off of that, there's definitely opportunities to buy into an advantage there by just being positioned right. And to be fair, being bandana pack doesn't really hurt, because if safety car, I've said the word now, if it's called, as the fielder coming past the pit lane, you can be far enough back that you can duck in and pick up an advantage there.
Well, speaking of pit lane, Nathan Higginson actually has picked up a puncture by virtue of whatever happened there, and he's now had to go the whole entire lap with a punctured left front tyre. So unfortunately for him, it was just about 200-300 metres beyond where the pit lane entrance was. He's had to do a whole entire lap on a punctured hard tyre, and he's finally made it back to the lane now.
Yeah, at this point, he might actually I think he will more than likely go a lap down with Luke Rosella coming up to the end of the second sector. Yeah,
he's going to go a lap down, and that's the hard part here too. Depending on where you pit in the sequence, you will inevitably end up going a lap down. So for him, at least he's getting his stop out of the way, but he's got a hell of a lot of effort to bring that back. He's going to need a safety car sometime soon to get the lucky dog and get back on the lead lap.
Absolutely. Well, I think we missed it in the middle of catching all the mid-pack action, but Luke Rosella, as I was talking about in first, has finally, fastest lap, but he has also gotten through on Will Devonish, gotten through actually by the tune of nearly 0.8 of a second. So now it's Will Devonish trailing fairly comfortably behind Luke Rosella, really more Seth Brown, I think, trying to bind on something now, maybe start something up with Will Devonish over second place, but first to third, very much a bit of follow the leader at the moment. Yeah, very much follow the leader as it sits right now, and then there's a bit of a gap to this group of 2 cars with a little bit of a lag moment there for Noah Tara. Not sure if that's the old Adelaide Hills internet going on again, but he had definitely a bit of a lag moment on our screen there. He's got Dane Liccardo right behind him, so these drivers started pretty much where they are on the road at the moment. They've held their own and tracking along nicely. And then back behind them, the next man is Brendan Ross, who's moved up 4 spots after all of that. Actually ahead of Zach Brown, who started ahead of his teammate. He started 9th, so Brown's up to 7th. So a good result for him so far. And again, another 2 pair of Commodores just tracking along, minding their own business. It's a long race. And then big group, we were just watching Cox, Locke,
Green and Hall. They are the top 10, and then the remainder, or the outside the top 10, with Hall looking at the back of Green, who was very, very close to going in the back of Lockie Lockdown. I think he actually coughed up a spot to Bailey Hall. He has, as a result of that. So, mistake from Anthony Green, and Hall goes through. There we go. We'll have a look at that on the old replay again, because it was just on the other side of the shot, and we were watching, it was Daniel Cox, and then Green made this little error going down into the hairpin, and Hall was sort of just dancing around the mirrors here, didn't quite make the move, and look at that, snatched the rears, car goes wide. Hall says thank you very much. Yeah,
so a good job in the end for Green to catch it, not only catch it, but to not end up in the back of Lockie Lock in the process. Very well driven from him. And then only cough up the spot was probably the least of the woes he could have triggered with that. But that said, yeah, it seems to be a thing, and it seems to be a thing in Dev Series as well, is that you very much, it's not like the tyres go off, as speaking of going off, to seeing Cox wide as well, so that's coughed up a few spots. It's not like the tyres go off, very much you have to sit into a rhythm very early in this race, or you'll find yourself in a position where you're spinning, you're wandering off track, you're just heating up tyres too much, and almost in a position where you want to pit more often than your tyres really should need you pitting. Speaking of pitting, actually, I've just had a look at the timing trick. Anthony Higginson is actually out of this race as well, so he could have come back into it with a safety car, but maybe just not looking forward to running around by himself for the best part of 10, 20 laps until that happened.
Yeah, I think so. There's actually been a change of position in position 6 as well, so Zach Brown has gone through on Brendan Ross, and I wouldn't say that was something I would have been calling a few moments ago.
I've just gone back to the replay, and it was down at the hairpin the previous lap. He just lined up Rossi for a move and just parked it on through.
Yeah, he did. He actually just made that move and made it stick.
Yeah, so I mean, these guys obviously not teammates tonight, but they do both run in other events on iRacing under big rain. So they very much know their way they want to race, and they probably again recognise you're not going to win the race on lap 7. So you know, if Zach feels like he's got a bit of pace right now, just let him go, and you know, maybe Zach will wobble, or Zach will have to pit earlier, or he might just mess up the pit strategy, and Rossi can get back on him then. The other thing as well, actually, is that Rossi's biggest issue is less how he does positionally. Well, positionally, yes, but his biggest issue, as we mentioned, is teams. He wants to finish ahead of Koenigsegg Manus, who is currently
way down the order.
Not the last car on the road, but pretty close to it.
Yeah, he's very close to it. He's moved up the order a little bit. Here he is, actually. He's 19th place. He's gone past Higginson by virtue of the DNF, and Darryl Callaghan, I think, has made a couple of errors, as his last lap was a 1:16.4, so he's had a bit of a tardy lap. And Igmanis is trailing Foley because that's the man he ran into. Foley himself is trying to tackle Stuart Nickel in the number 12 PBF Motorsport machine.
Yeah, and a bit of a quiet run for Stuart at the back. I say they'd estimate a few spots off of qualifying, but very much a different kettle of fish for him. He has run fairly well in the Dev Series. Actually, was up towards the front of winning race in Dev Series a couple of rounds he's made, but very much a different kettle of fish running in Supercars. And for him, as I said, more a preparation. He's got into it with Foley.
Yeah, he got worried out of that. He tried to give Foley a bit of room, and then he gave him too much room, and he rubbed the fence, and then when he hit the anchors, the car jumped around on him a little bit, and he did pretty well to catch that, actually, but that's going to make him vulnerable to Igmanis now to slip through in the next few moments.
Absolutely, as I was going to be saying, Stuart's really just more here to get some seat time to prepare for Enduro Cup, because he's going to be racing a lot of these guys in the Enduros as well. And to be fair, Townsville's a good round to pick because you're running a lot of similar conditions. It's a long race, not by no means a full Enduro race, but also running around on the hard tyre and just getting comfortable on the hard tyre. That's probably the biggest part for these guys to do, especially not having driven in Supercars or spent a lot of time in Dev Series this year, is that the hard tyres, they're not fun, but you've got to get used to them for the Enduros.
That's right. Well, at least for 2 of the Enduro events, you've got to use them, because Bathurst is always a hard tyre round, even in real life. It's a hard tyre round, and then Pukekohe this year will be a hard tyre round. And the wildcard, the joker in the pack, is actually Sandown, which is an open tyre choice. So that will be an interesting Enduro setup when we get to those 2 grid races. As Foley's gone deep, he's done what Brendan Ross did in the qualifying shootout there, run deep, and McNichol just not close enough to have another bite at Foley. A bit further up the order, a little bit of a battle going on here. Oh, so it's a battle, I'd say. It's more like a war at the moment. Steve Warwick enters a car off the road here. Who's that around on the left-hand side of the circuit? That's Bailey Hall.
That's Hall.
Bailey Hall goes around. Oh, and he was very, very close, I think, there to re-entering the circuit. He had to wait a little bit of time there. And he's even going to go back behind Callahan here. So, Mr. Hall, would you please enlighten us about what you did? Let's have a look. He was running on his own behind Lockie Lock, so he was actually up in 9th place at the time. A moment through here and just got out of control and went for a bit of a wild ride. So he kept it off the fence, importantly. That was the bit that he wanted to do, but then look at the freight train that just went past him. 6 cars went through and then sort of a bit blindsided here and couldn't quite see to the right-hand side with all the signboards in the way. But
yeah,
very lucky.
He did a pretty good job in the end. I mean, I think the only change would be throw a bit more flick spin on it if possible to try and get the car turned around a little better, but all things pretty good. Going back to the live action, I'm looking at Anthony Green and Cam Rutledge banging door mirrors, which, a little bit of a spray wide there for Green as well. He's running pretty well, but he seems to just maybe not have the length of pace, as a way of putting it. It's probably not the word I want, but it's the word I'm using, of the Supercars drivers, because he's definitely quick enough. We've seen him in Dev Series at the front, but if we compare him to Ethan Knight, who definitely in Dev Series is probably slightly the weaker of the two drivers, but in Supercars he's very much seemed to found himself a little sort of happy medium to exist in. He's currently ahead of this train. He's up in 11th, having a little quiet run around just up behind Daniel Cox. Yeah,
he's doing quite well actually for his first night in a championship. He's qualified well. He qualified 14th. His time was competitive. He didn't make the shootout, but it is a progressive grid format. So right now he's in a very nice spot, through the sequence of stops that is to follow shortly, to potentially jump up the order. There's an opportunity there for an undercut. At the moment he's in a CRE Anson sandwich, but he's got a bit of wiggle room either side of that. So I'm very, very impressed with how he's handled himself at the moment. He hasn't done anything rash or silly. He's just quietly motoring along and justifying the wildcard opportunity that he's been given.
Absolutely, and I mean, talking about enduros, this is a good opportunity for those guys that are running tonight, or the guys that run next week at Hidden Valley, to sort of use this as their resume to go to teams. Hey, you're looking for someone, because maybe not setting the world on fire like your Seth Seth Brown. Yeah, there's too many people with colours in their names. Not setting the world on fire like Seth, at least in the practice times. I said he's still running pretty well up there. He's running actually up with Will, sort of sitting up behind Will at the moment, tuned by about a second and a bit. But
there's been someone spilt. Someone's been spilt. It looks like it's Peter Thrower. Actually, I did say there was a bit of a war going on. It wasn't a battle. It was a war.
Oh, yeah, there is a war up here.
There was something going on there, and unfortunately, Peter Thrower was the one that got the rough end of the stick on that one. So Steve Warwick was in the process of passing Brent Foley. I think they'd gone side by side through the quick chicane, and then Thrower had taken some advantage here, and then got a little bit of side-to-side contact with Foley, and then they all went through. So the contact was pretty minor, but for Pete's sake, he was just trying to capitalise on the opportunity that presented itself. Unfortunately for him, it just a little bit of minor contact, and around goes the 56.
Yeah, that was an awkward half a lap, and I think ultimately what that comes down to is just the classic thing of too many cars trying to occupy the same bit of tarmac, because it was Foley was trying to pass Pete at the same time that Pete was trying to pass Steve Warwick. At the same time, Steve Warwick was having a wobble off the turn 3 and giving Pete the opportunity to pass him. So they're all trying to get an advantage, all trying to go for the same bit of tarmac. And we saw this at Watkins Glen with Termo and Rossing. That's an example. We've seen this plenty of times across racing. There's too many cars trying to get the same number of spots. And, we talk, battles. You talk about, you get more than X amount of cars in the battle and you're going to have an accident. And I think there were 6 or 7 guys all trying to go for the one bit of tarmac for a lap or so there. And I wouldn't say you're asking for it, but that many cars over that little amount of tarmac, you're going to run into a problem.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And I can just see here on screen that Rutledge has managed to make his way past Ethan Knight for 11th place. And likewise, Brendan Ross has fallen away from the back of Zach Brand here and into the clutches of Locke, who's actually driving quite well at the moment. Getting to that sort of time in the race where pit stops are going to start to be playing on people's minds. And we had a look at this in the development series race last week. Look at our DCD race facts here on your right hand side of the screen. Pit stops will be required because that fuel burn rate at about 4.3 to 4.6 litres a lap leaves you about 5 to 6 laps short in a race situation with full green flag running. So you are going to have to take that gamble. But the big question that we had for everybody, and this came in the development series as well, Rody, is there is a hard tyre cliff. There is a point in time where the hard tyre becomes unworkable and you just start to lose time. And it's about now that you start thinking about, is it time to go in? When do I want to change these tyres? You sort of want to get to halfway. It's going to be that lap 14 to about lap 17 window that I expect to see most of the cars come in. But it's all going to be about your setup and how you've been able to preserve the life of those tyres. Because if you've gone aggressive, you're going to have nothing to fight with by the time you get to the pit stop. And if you pit too early, you're going to have nothing to fight with at the end of the race.
Yeah, purely speaking from the point of view of a driver, the hard tyres are already very meh when they're green. So then when you knock them off their window, their window is a lot bigger than they are for a soft tyre. But when you knock them out of their window, they are then very, very, very average. And yeah, that's sort of about sort of the here point mark. You start to run into that, especially with the pace some of the guys at the front are doing. You're going to be doing a lot of work from the tyre. I mean, Rodella's got I think it was at a 4 or 5 second gap over Devonish at this point. He's going to be using quite a lot of that tyre as well.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah, so he's definitely one amongst others going to be starting to feel that. And yeah, good easy way to split it is halfway down the middle. I think guys were pushing out. I think the fuel got you out to about a 20. I think the fuel was getting out towards sort of 20 laps, give or take. But I think it was 20 laps. I don't remember back to what we did last week.
Yeah. I can tell you what it was. Like with the safety car intervention in race 2, you could actually get the full distance on a tank of fuel. That part wasn't the problem. It was the tyres.
It was the tyres. Yeah, so about lap 20, I think was where we're sort of looking at for the tyres to get in and change the tyres in a stop. Actually, no, that would make sense, yeah, because we intentionally fuel for 20 laps for that reason, to try and stop before then to guarantee that we got new tyres.
Brendan Ross finally makes another mistake and gives Lockie Lock the opportunity he needs down at turn number 2, and Lock seizes the advantage and goes through at turn 2, but he's going to have to fight for this one now through turn 3. Leave Ross a bit of space on the inside as they get to the fast chicane. Who concedes? Neither.
Oh, Neither
concede, and Ross understeers through the corner, but then on the other side of it, Lock comes out the other side with the position, and he'll take the defensive line now into the fast chicane. But he's got the high ground, especially for the next part of the chicane, and he will consolidate 7th place. So it took a few corners, it took a Ross mistake, but Lock was patient enough to wait it out, and he's rewarded with 7th place.
Yeah, we talked about tyres, and we talked about how Ross's car looked in the warm-up, the shootout, and it looks a bit similar now. You just see little twitches from the rear of the car as he's trying to get on throttle through corner. Obviously, you're going to have that because cars aren't designed to turn and accelerate, but you compare it to Lock, he looks very stable, and then Ross just in there, just in little twitches out of the corner, which is going to be nabbing some feet off the back of him. I see one car in the pit lane, that is Bailey Hall, who is now in for a stop, with the bonnet off as well, so I think he's clapped a wall somewhere in all that.
Yeah, he's been in, taken his service, and he's on the move. So he is the last lap. And actually, he's been pinged for a pit lane speeding penalty as well. And he's actually gone a lap down to the race leader too. So he's going to come out into traffic, and he's going to have to tour the lane again. So yes, his compulsory stop might be out the way, but he's gone a lap down by virtue of running into a wall or something somewhere, and now he's got to do another tour.
I think actually... No, maybe not. I was just waiting back to have a look more at least also what triggered his drive through. It's something similar, I think, to what we saw with Darren Kemp in Dev Series, actually, where he slowed down but didn't bother to put the limiter on.
Oh dear.
Because he seems to have got to speed. He seems to have got to speed, but then he was imagine doing 60 k's an hour around the corner. So that's it's an easy enough thing to do, I suppose, once you get into the habit of going, right, I'm at this speed, I'm doing this speed, in my head, I'm automatically doing this, but I don't have to do anything else. And then you just forget that you actually know there is a button press involved with all that. So.
Here we go. Here's the first of the main stoppers we want to take a look at. Brendan Ross, lap 16, right on the half distance mark. So he's splitting it 100% evenly down the middle. 50-50 split for Brendan
Ethan
Ross.
Knight in as well, and Bailey Hall back into service drive-through, but I don't think anybody else from the queue. Pete Thrower very late dive into pit lane as well.
Yeah, very, very late dive into pit lane there as well. So Ross, Knight, and then you've got Peter Thrower and I think Bailey Hall, you said, was in, and Darryl Callahan, I'm just keeping an eye on him to see. He's coming around the final corner at the moment. He's going on for another lap. You can see there was a little awkward moment between these two gentlemen at the final corner, just while keeping an eye on the pit stop sequence with Egmanis and McNichol getting together. Nothing major in that one at the moment. So all those drivers that are in the lane are now leaving the lane. Now there is, just to be careful here, just to remind everybody, there is pit stops that you will need to do to get home from here, as Rosella has actually just lapped his teammate as through this whole sequence. There is no mandatory stops, let's be clear. There is no mandatory stops required. It's not a CPS situation. You just need, as it sits right now, you were going to need a stop to get home, unless you get 3 safety cars and you want to try and make it all the way home on a set of tyres and a tank of fuel. Good luck to you.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, you're going to need to under normal racing conditions because the fuel just won't get there. The tyres could, but they're going to feel very, very, very average. But the fuel is a major issue. So yeah, safety car is going to be the only way that people can make the race distance on a set of on a tank of fuel. And the way things are going so far, 20 laps into this race, we've still got almost 20 laps. We've still got not far off half it to go, but pretty clean running so far.
More cars in the lane at the moment. You've got Peter Tim Redmond in there. Daniel Cox is in. Brenton Foley, Anthony
I saw
Green.
Callahan
and Callahan
as well, but Devonish has just entered as well.
Yep, Callahan's just peeled off as well. So here is the pit lane camera. There goes Cox. Oh, he had the wall of whack on the way out of the pit lane. There goes Redmond, Foley, Anthony Green. You've got Callahan and Will Devonish in from second place as well. So that's what the situation looks like at the moment.
Noah Tara's in as well, so he'll be
Tara.
pitting, and I imagine we'll see probably Lockie's teammate in the next lap, because they're actually not far each other on track.
No, that's right. And the next cars I'm looking at, so Cam Rutledge is actually on his way to the lane as well. And the next one I'm looking for is Steve Warwick, so he's coming around the hairpin at the moment, and I say he'll be in too. There he goes. So that's him done. And then you've got Egmanis and McNichol behind him. Egmanis goes around again. McNichol,
nearly lost it.
McNichol nearly lost it. There was actually a yellow flag all but briefly, but I think that'll be because of the slow cars in the lane. I was worried for a minute we were about to get a safety car. My heart was in my mouth, and I'm going to go, right, who's in position here? Who's going to be trapped a lap down? And it would have been Brendan Ross to get the lucky dog. It would have trapped half the field down.
Yeah, I won't be surprised just looking at McNichol. He got slowed down, but a bit past the line, so we'll see if his pit lane is good or not. But the drives coming around, Tim Redmond keeps going, Daniel Cox keeps going.
Race
I see Slidey, Seth Brown there as well, he's still going. And Luke Rosella is now coming to the lane. Yeah,
so Rosella, the race leader, is in the lane. That'll hand the race lead over to this man on the screen, Seth Brown. Off he goes. And who else does that leave yet to make a stop? So Rosella's in the lane, he's stopped. Liccardo yet to stop.
As is Liccardo.
Zach Brown are coming in now. So Liccardo yet to stop. Devonish is the first car on the track that has actually stopped, but Rosella is still currently sat up in pit lane with Devonish coming around the last couple of corners now. So there'll be a comfortable margin here for Rosella. Out he comes. There goes Zach Brown into his box. There's Locke in the back of the ground, and there's Devonish in the background of that shot. So he actually has made a small gain, Will Devonish, but he hasn't made a significant gain over Luke Rosella by coming in a little bit earlier. So at the moment it's just Brown, Liccardo and Egmanis are the ones that have not stopped. So Egmanis understandably so, because he's actually gone to the back of the field and he's trying to recover spots as best as he can. And Brown in the lane, here he goes. Okay, so that's the current race leader in, so he's only lasted a lap. And I'd be expecting Liccardo to be in this lap. We'll know if he stays narrow on the exit here, and he does.
There he is.
So that's the giveaway sign. That'll cycle Rosella back to the lead of this race. And then all attention's now going to turn to Curtis Egmanis in his 100th race to see what he decides to pull. Now, what's his times, actually, out of curiosity? His last time was a 15.7, so the lap times are now starting to get to the stage where you've got to consider coming in for a stop. I was saying anywhere between sort of that 14 to lap 17 range is where you wanted to come in, but some drivers have stretched it out to the end of lap 20 to try and have a bit better rubber to fight with at the end of it as Egmanis comes in. So that should, just by looking at my list here, cleanse the field. Everybody will have now completed a pit stop.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in Termo's case if part of the reason he ran long as well was with where he was at in the start of the race was trying to play into a safety car. Trying to run the length of the tank,
Yeah.
that hopefully the safety car would pop up at sort of lap 16, 17 with everyone leaving the pits, you know, a mixture of cold.
Oh, there you go. Liccardo just lost a spot out of all of that. So Zach Brown made a net gain and an undercut. And that's a massive undercut as well, by the way, I should say, by coming in several laps earlier than Liccardo. And Liccardo was in at the end of lap 20, and Zach Brown was in. When did he come in for his stop? Live Races is telling me he only came in a lap earlier. He only came in at the end of lap 19, so he's made a massive gain. He wasn't close to the back of Liccardo, but he's absolutely stonewalled.
Yeah, I'm going to guess Liccardo, if nothing else, I'm going to guess possibly just traffic. And that's one of the things that I picked up on as well was it didn't help Devonish. Devonish wasn't going to catch Rosella, I think, anyway, but he picked up traffic from Callahan on his outlap, whereas Rosella, I think Rosella was pretty clean. Not only that, he came back out into clean air as well. So that's very much a thing to think about. It's a very minor thing to think about, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things, but it definitely helps your race if you can come out in clean air. And not only that, if you can try and sort of come in clean air, because you don't really want to, you'd like to have a very clean entry to the pit lane. You don't have to worry about, you know, someone pitting in front of you or somebody slow taking the inside line for the corner or just all those things that can throw you off a little bit. But yeah, especially just trying to avoid traffic on your way back out of the pit lane. But this spices it up a little bit because there's only a lap difference on tyres, but we'll see a difference potentially in strategy and drive style because, yeah, the CRE cars tend to extract their pace from being a little bit more stable, whereas I know the PBF setup, or at least Foley's setup, very much relies on getting a little bit of sideways action. And it'll be interesting how that plays out because Zach, in theory, should probably have the pace initially as the tyres are fresh, but as the tyres start to go off, then Liccardo's tyre conservation should start to come back with.
Yeah, but you've got to be careful too. That's the big problem. You have to be careful in a situation like this that you don't overcook the tyre too early. You don't ask too much of the tyre. Even though there's only a lap difference on the delta between the two drivers, you can't use and abuse the tyre too early. You've got to be sensible and you've got to pick your moment here. So you've got to drive smooth, just drive cleanly. In one case, you've got to keep driving behind you. You've got to play defence. And in the other case, you've got to be smooth. You just got to drive the normal racing line. And then when the opportunity is right, you've got to ask for it. That's the first sign of trouble there from Zach Brown. He locked a brake going in the final corner. But then Liccardo realised what was going on. And then he lit it up on the exit of the last corner. So then he lost all that advantage. He might have been in line to have a bit of a go down here at turn number 2. But in fact, it now turns around and it means that he's just got to sit there and just plan his move out all over again. So this is what I was sort of intimating. You don't ask too much of it early on and you just sit there and play the patient game until you've got that tyre into its working zone and then you go for it.
Yeah, the interesting part of the plan is as well, we don't quite see it from the cameras just yet, but just up the road on these guys, I was just wondering why they were catching Noah Turra, and they were, but they weren't. Noah Turra was getting through Daryl Callahan as lap traffic, so these guys are a lap or two off catching Callahan as well, and if they're trying to go too wide where they catch Callahan, that's going to get spicy.
Yeah, Callahan, you can see just in the back of shot here is about sort of the length of the straightaway between turns 10 and 11 on Noah Turra, and then the other two are catching up here. Here goes Liccardo, he sends it.
Too big a send.
Yeah, big send. You're right, too big a send. That was never going to happen. So the opportunity was there, but now he's got a big old flat spot on that front right tyre, and he's got to carry that for the next 9 to 10 laps.
Yeah, he might be able to work that back out of the tyre, but he's definitely got some work to do now. And, you know, as you mentioned, Keith, keeping the tyres in a good temp range, will probably heated them up a bit as well. If nothing else, has been trapped behind another car for a couple of laps. So he's going to now try and buy back into a battle with Zach Brown. But crucially, I think the lap traffic might actually play the other way for Dane, whereas he might have been disadvantaged being right behind Zach Brown as they both try to get past him. But potentially, if Zach catches Darrell in an awkward spot and Dane doesn't, that'll be a way to bring him back into it.
Yeah. Now, what this has done with all the pit stop sequences is it has actually spread the field out. Like there's very few little battle groups at the moment here. There was the one over 4th and 5th that we were, 5th and 6th that we were watching. The only other ones that are on the track at the moment are the ones for 7th and 8th, which is Ross and Locke. So Locke is actually all over Brendan Ross again here. And we saw this little battle going on before they went in for the sequence of stops. And then you've got to go all the way back to 15th, 16th and 17th, which is Stuart McNichol, Curtis McManus and Steve Warwick. That's the only other sort of group of cars on track at the moment. It's all spread out after that.
Yeah, it sort of seems to be the thing that comes with. I'm not sure if it's necessarily the hard tyre races, necessarily the longer races, what it is, but we've had a couple of races this year that sort of have, I wouldn't say necessarily devolved, but they've turned into just hot lap sessions with a little bit of traffic on track for some of the, definitely some of the quick guys, but generally it's just become a case of lapping, keeping the car in a safe position, just watching that battle for Turmo, going for a move on Stuart McNichol. A little bit of an elbow there actually. I'm not sure whether. I imagine they've been having a little thing all race. I know that Turmo's got a bit of a love-hate relationship with the average ASR Germans. I'm not sure whether that extends to Stewart as well. But yeah, a bit of friendly racing. But we have seen them doing a bit of panel rubbing most of the race. So I'm not sure whether that was just perhaps a return to surface, something we missed earlier in the race. But yeah, that spiced the battle up. And actually, Steve Warwick trying to buy in on this one as well with a little bit of a move up the inside of turn 2.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a look there, and McNichol's had to leave him some room. And got very close on the exit of turn 2 there. I tell you what, there was a cigarette papers width and not much more. As Warwick has another look at turn 3, that's a little bit more of an aggressive lunge. And I think McNichol has got the short back and sides there. Warwick goes through.
Yeah, actually, the interesting bit as well with this battle, it sort of tailed off a little bit, but Stuart's trying to buy back in on Steve here. They've got the race leader coming up on them as well. Yeah,
they're going to be in a bit of trouble here at the moment because, the race leader's about to put a lap on them. So blue flags will be in order, and they are right now for Stuart McNichol. So the next opportunity for him to let the leader through is just on the other side of this little hump here. And if he decides to do that, then that'll be, I guess the race leader will appreciate that, but not on this occasion. Might have to wait until we get to the start-finish straight. There was a moment there where McNichol got very, very wide and the car shook around a little bit. And the race leader was right there. Could have been a heart-stopping moment for Luke Rosella as he now will round up Steve Warwick down the front straight.
Say that actually. He might just borrow a bit of slipstream off of Warwick, because Warwick's also probably getting a bit of. No, actually, I don't mean to tell you. He's just got a very smooth exit off the corner compared to Rosella, who's probably a little bit bottled up, trying to just keep in mind a bit of space for Stuart McNichol to get around as well.
He's actually done that pretty well, Steve Warwick. He actually just did that fairly well at turn 2. Let the inside line for the car in front, and then it was actually able to tuck back in and not lose too much ground to McNichol. Yeah,
and that'll be the concern as well, is doing it in a way that mitigates his disadvantage in a battle. So yeah, he's definitely still got a comfortable couple of tenths, actually, it is over Stuart McNichol. But Stuart McNichol, as I mentioned, the PBF setup, very much of a wilder carroty. Okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't a passing move I expected to see.
No, but I'm wondering whether that might be some sort of an order or maybe a decision to go, you know what, maybe I was a little bit too aggressive on the lap prior and I'll hand it back.
Possibly.
There you go. Now, there's a bit of an exchange here as well. Locke managed to get past Ross, and now Ross has managed to get past Locke. So this battle over 7th and 8th is far from settled. And very, very aggressive Lockie Locke at the moment. Very, very opportunistic way to get past, and then Ross managed to get him back at turn number 2. So the number 237 Mustang is in the zone. He's got this in this sweet spot. You picked this up throughout the last couple of rounds already. Hasn't been great in qualifying, but his racecraft has been very, very good. And this is on display again here.
Yeah, not quite a Mr. Sunday, not quite like an inverse George Russell, but he's always just a little bit of contact with the rear of Ross there, but gave him a chance to recover the car. Yeah, it's just his pace has been I don't think there's any reason why he couldn't have qualifying pace. When we've seen from his teammate Noataro, they're going to be running similar cars. Maybe just the short, sharp, just get in, get out style of qualifying suits the South Australian better. But Lockie Locke, not quite as strong in qualifying. But that said, he's had good qualifying results. They just haven't been as consistent as his teammate. But definitely in the race, he makes it hard for himself, but at the same time, his ability to just pick up spots in the races sort of very much covers off for his relative lack of consistency in qualifying.
Yeah, that's right at the moment. So he's in a very, very entertaining scrap with Brendan Ross at the moment for 7th place. His teammate, however, has had a little bit of a fall from grace, right? So Zach Brown and Dane Liccardo have gone through on Noah Turra in the last couple of laps. I'm just trying to cycle back to see where that was for Turra, because he's had a dead set shocker of a lap somewhere. And it was on lap 25. He did a 124.7. He had an absolutely shocking middle sector. So he's gone off the road somewhere, and Brown and Liccardo seized the opportunity.
Yeah, middle sector is going to be. It's only the fast chicane, I think. Fast chicane, maybe slow chicane.
Slow chicane.
Slow chicane. So if he's done it in the sector, he's probably done it at the fast. Yeah, he's probably done similar to what we saw from, I'll say, Rosella, but he actually got away without a track cut. But something similar to Rosella, where he's just carried too much speed at the fast chicane.
Here we go again. Locke having to make Ross work for it, making the defensive move here. They've got some lap traffic in Callahan. Is he going to go for the crisscross here? Lockie's going for the crisscross. Gets the car square, but he can't drive it off the corner fast enough. But he is... Oh, he was there or thereabouts. And I thought he might have been able just to keep the nose of the Mustang in there and force Ross to give him a little bit of space, but it didn't materialise. Yellow flags are now out, so there's no passing this sector. Somebody's off the track, and the yellow flags...
cleared. I think it was... Yeah, the clears... Was it behind them?
Oh!
I think it might have been behind them.
Behind them, it was Bailey Hall went flying through the chicane with 2 wheels off the deck. I don't know who it was that was out of control or it triggered the yellow flag there, all but briefly, but it sort of took away any incentive that Locke would have had to have a go at Ross, and now he's gone and had a go at Ross, and he's turned him around. Or half spun him and turned him around.
Oh,
and the safety car.
What
a game changer. What a game changer this is. Safety car comes out as a result of that little bit of contact. Now, the problem was both of them were stationary. That's what it was. So if we look at this on the replay, you'll see exactly what has caused this and what the reason why. So we saw the contact. This was it here. This is the problem here. 2 stationary cars, all but briefly, and then Bailey Hall within proximity on the scene. Marshals say, nope, that's a safety car, and throw the yellow flag, full course caution.
Yeah, so the question now is, who pits? Or does anyone pit? Because, you're going to be on tyres that are definitely sort of 10 to 15 laps old. And if you're in racing, especially the Dane Licados, Zach Brown's sort of the tyre use, you're going to be... Well, I mean, suppose at the top you're going to stay. It also depends on how long the safety car is going to be. We're probably a pretty good shot of it being a green-white checker.
Yeah,
which is what we saw in Dev Series and Race 1 as well. So a bit of mirroring happening there. But if you're down the back, I'd consider it.
Yeah, maybe. You might be right. Now, there are a couple of cars trapped between the leader and the safety car here. You've got Brenton Foley and Cam Rutledge. They've actually gone a lap down, and they will have to clear the safety car. But, yeah, I'm just trying to work out. I haven't seen anyone pull into the pits yet, Roddy.
Yeah, I'm just going to cycle through. Bailey Hall is in, but he's already... he's only 19, so he's sort of the candidate for what we're thinking would be the best time to do it. The other spicy one as well, actually, talking about drivers a lap down, Cam Rutledge is actually trapped between Will Devonish and Luke Rosella. So this isn't for a championship, this isn't in 2021, and this isn't Abu Dhabi, but there's shades of that going on.
Yeah, they've just been given the instruction to pass the safety car as well because they were trapped between the leader and the safety car. So that is the rule in ASR. If you are caught, you just need to wait for the clearance to come through to say, please pass the safety car. And when it's safe to do so, you do so. Foley got through pretty quickly, but I believe Cam actually shortcut the chicane at turn 8.
Yeah, I'm calling it now. This is going to be an interesting restart because we have the battle that wasn't really happening, the big limestone battle we called out very early, which was first, second, and third, just running in a train. But they've been so separated that they've got little bits of lap traffic interspersed between them. So Cam Rutledge is between first and second. Sorry, Curtis Igmanis between first and second. Then we've got Stuart McNichol and Steve Warwick between second and third, and Pete Throw attacked in the back as well. And they were having their own little battle there for the last few laps. So they're going to try and it's going to be a gamble where you have to get the way of the cars that are trying to pass you, but at the same time, if you do it better than the cars in front of you that you're racing, you can pick up some spots here. So there's going to be 2 battles going on for what is going to be a lap, and one of them has to give way to the other, but they don't want to.
No, they definitely don't want to. And the bit that you're picking up here as well, Roddy, is you've got lead car, lapped car, lead car, lapped car, and then another lapped car, and then a lead car. So there's, and even before that, and again, you've got in the top sort of 7 or 8 cars behind the safety car, you've got 4 lead lap cars, and you've got 4 cars that are a lap down. And they're all going to be engaged in their own battle sort of here. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they pair off. Turmo won't want to, or Igmanis won't want to impede his teammate, but he won't want to give position to McNichol either.
I've just thought of another thing. With this going green-white checker and this going as late as it is, we were scheduled for 32 laps. We're currently planning for at least 33. Yeah. Are people going to be fueled?
That's the next question.
If they've been tricky, if they've gone, I don't have to fuel for more than 12 laps, if I pit at lap 20, are they going to be fueled for it?
Well, there's been a couple of drivers that are on the main straight. I did see Bailey Hall was in the pits, but mind you, he's a lap down, and Cox was in too.
So he might be fuel questionable.
Yeah, Cox is the last car on the lead lap by our timing. And the safety car's going around again, so that means we're now going to be at least 34 laps duration. So you remember here, it's green, white, checker, finish. Every lap the safety car goes around before it goes in. Once we pass the 32 lap mark, which is right now, we tack on another lap to the end of the time. So now we're to 34 laps distance, but we're on lap 33 because we do need to get the safety car clear. So this is interesting. Now the safety car is randomised. It's either 2 laps, 3 laps, or 4 laps. That's how it works. It just figures it out by itself. It's just a random number that gets thrown out. We have no clue what it is.
So I think for Warwick, he's in and he's stopped, but I wouldn't be surprised if part of the thinking was, I've got to stop, but it doesn't hurt that I'm stopping because now I'm out of the queue. I'm not going to be at risk of getting sprayed by a leader at turn 2.
Yeah.
So he is going to fall to the back of the train. I think his next car on track, actually, he will catch up to the back of, or his next battle is with Bailey Hall, but he is the last car on track now, yes.
Yeah, he'll come out, and on top of that, he's coming just coming out of the pits, and he actually falls in behind Daniel Cox. So in terms of that order, it will be Bailey Hall, Daniel Cox, who is on a lead lap, and then Steve Warwick. But you're right, maybe it could be a case of, maybe he was a little bit tight on fuel, and it looked like he just came in and put some fuel in the car, but I didn't quite see the end of it, whether he took some tyres at all or not. But
I think if you're going to have to get fuel, it wouldn't hurt to have fresh tyres. At least that you can have a crack and have the car not fall out from underneath you because the tyres are a bit half done. Yeah,
well, under safety car, that's you take the least amount of pain. So Absolutely. You may as well do that. So, wow. We're waiting to see if the safety car goes in. This will be how this works. At the moment, the order is Rosella, Will Devenish, Seth Brown, Zach Brown. He's eyeing off potentially a podium finish here. It looks like the safety car's coming in because the leader's backing them up.
Yep.
So, got to be very, very careful here because we did have this in a development series where it took a little bit of time for the safety car to get into the lane before the green flag was thrown, and that's what the Pixel guys will be telling Luke Rosella now. Just hold the train up. Just keep holding it up until you get that green flag because it does take a little bit of time before it clears. And here we go. Looks like we're coming to the line now. Is Rosella picking up the pace? He's taking them all the way down to the line to the last possible minute, and then he goes. Right. Last lap is on the run here now as Devenish is second, defending from Seth Brown. That's sort of the interesting part of this equation because Rosella's got a buffer at the moment with Turmo in between himself and Devenish. Turmo runs deep and lets Will Devenish through, but the opportunity's there. And Seth Brown goes through. And there's several cars behind them that have gone down as well. And I'm going to have to go back and unpick this one, but it's no safety car. They're going to have to sort themselves out. So Rosella's going to skip away here and probably take this win. We're keeping an eye on whether Seth Brown's got anything in store for Will Devenish. If he does, it'll be down here at this chicane or it'll be down at the hairpin. Defensive line from Devenish. If he's got a track cut, he burns it right now. And I think he probably would have there. He was a little bit over the line. But I think he's got enough in
Seth
reserve.
Off the line there. So Seth, last opportunity, he's going to have to do a very good run through here and try and put up the inside to go for an over under the last corner. He has regained a little bit of position, but not quite on smooth on the exit of the corner. So I think Will Devenish might have second, but crucially also Luke Rosella is going to have first place. Seth Brown buying it at the last second, but not quite the run, and he's sprayed it wide as well. So that will be a win to Luke Rosella for the Real Holden Pixel Racing team, second to Will Devenish, and third on debut for Seth Brown.
There you go. So top three as they were when they crossed the line. Rosella, Devenish, and Brown.
Zach Brown in fourth.
Zach Brown with fourth, and then Lockie Lock actually home for fifth. So he gets the better of Brendan Ross, who's gone back to the garage straight away. Daniel Cox, who was 13th at the restart, gets up to 7th place, followed by Tim Redmond, and then Anthony Green 9th, and Brenton Foley in 10th. And the rest of the cars that were on the lead lap were Rutledge, Liccardo, and Noah Turra, and then the first that cars a lap down was McNichol, and Egmanus Hall, Warwick, Thrower, and Callahan. But the real story here I want to look at, Rody, is what on earth happened at that restart?
I'm scrubbing back to have a look right now. I think we're going to have enough time before the session ticks over that I can at least get one look at it. There were cars involved, and I guarantee it was just was someone trying to throw a bit too much at it on the way down into the hairpin. I've just gone and lost it myself using the wrong buttons. But
I will have it for you in a few moments. So we'll see what happens here. Here we go. We have got this on the restart now. So from the restart replay, we've Liccardo was sitting in about fifth place there. He was in behind Zach Brown, and then Noah Tara was in behind him. So Liccardo got a fairly decent restart. He was actually up alongside Brown. And let's have a look here. What happens? He actually just sort of minding his own business here. Oh, and he got a little, probably going to end up being a racing incident there, I think. So what's happened is he's gone into the back of Zach Brown, who managed to get through. And then the resulting contact, it was a bit of a snooker effect. So then he got snookered back into Noah Tara, who probably wasn't expecting it. And then Thrower and a couple of others were caught up in that as well. So if I'm a steward in this one here, Roddy, I'm probably going to say that's going down as a racing incident.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Crucially, I think all that was, with the exception of I think the lead car in that, which is sort of why it got awkward. The lead car in that snooker was a lap traffic car. Otherwise, that was Zach into Dane into Tara. We're all racing the lead lap, who were then racing with Ross. I understand why Ross immediately parked and pitted it, because I mean he still had a good finish there, but you just feel a bit average after quite something like that, even if he got a pretty good run out of it, all things considered. But yeah, the amount of cars that a little bit of car damage picked up. That said, everyone did a pretty good job once the accident itself had happened of getting back underway fairly safely. But yeah, those things happen. It's green white checkers, and I think I was watching back the Dev Series broadcast, and Lewis made the point of, if you got the chance to make up 15 spots, drivers are going to do it, and there wasn't 15 spots on the table for some of these drivers, but yeah, they were going to have a crack because they wanted to make what they could of it, and in the end, some of them got the better of it. The people in the end, like Lockie Locke, who was part of it, but don't say, racing incident ultimately, but Lockie Locke, Ross actually got I think a slight gain in the net result of it. Zach Brown, I think, got away pretty lucky out of all of it as well, because he was part of it as well. But he managed to maintain his fourth position. But yeah, that was a bit of chaos.
Yeah, that definitely was a little bit of chaos, and I guess the chaos, so to speak, as well, that we've actually decided we're going to hold the broadcast interviews until after race 2. We are running a little bit behind time with the shootout and that extra little bit of safety car intervention, and it is getting a little bit late for some of our New Zealand competitors, so we are going to just hold the interviews for the moment and get race 2 completed, and then we'll do the interviews after that. So a little bit of something different for the night. So while we cycle through to the next session for warm-up, and then we get the drivers gridded up and ready to go again, the a little bit of interesting news, I guess, that's come through in the last couple of weeks, and something that we probably should share with the group as a whole. A lot of people know about this already. Live races, our beloved tool that we use every single broadcast and throughout the week for monitoring sessions and drivers to find times to improve and all the things that we report on, as of the end of this month, will be no more. The developer that has been putting that together, or that tool together and managing it for the better part of the last God knows how many years, has actually decided enough is enough, and has decided that he would prefer to, for operational reasons or whatever reasons the case is, that is coming to a close. So what that has meant for us is we're actually on the lookout for a new piece of technology to be able to help solve that. And I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, when this news went out and it broke, there were several people that put their hands up straight away offering some solutions. I think Ozrob was one to offer it. Taipan had a few suggestions about what we could possibly use or investigate. There's a couple of guys that actually have decided that, we might actually see if there's something we can do to help get the league going and to build something that would be better for the long term. So, hats off to Tim Redmond. Hats off to you, Rody, for introducing the group to TJ Steele and those guys have been working together with myself and getting all sorts of data that we've been able to get out of the system to work out what we can do in the short term moving forward, but what is also going to give us a long-term benefit, not only just for the league, but that may benefit other leagues down the line as well. So I just want to say community spirit, guys, within ASR. It doesn't matter whether it's people building tracks, people building cars, people building liveries, people coming together to find solutions to problems. This year, I cannot thank everybody enough that has put their hands up and contributed in some way, shape or form. And I should also mention as well the guys that have thrown some money to the league as well: Peter Thrower, Cam Rutledge, Dane Liccardo, those guys that have put some sponsorship dollars in this year as well. This has probably been the biggest year in terms of just community spirit and community engagement that I've seen. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, as a broadcaster and an admin, guys, thank you so much. Brody.
Yeah, they've done a brilliant job. Generally the communities as a whole with everything we contribute to do. You're right. The track work that goes on, the car creation and even just the ideas that people throw out there for cars to create, because there's some stuff potentially outside the realms of what we think that could be coming along the line as well. But the livery work that goes on, I think the biggest thing that you missed out as well is that some of the community work that goes into getting the guys that don't have the knowledge base or the time to work on tuning a car, especially if they're running for the first time, to get them some sort of base setup that they can work on. I know it's maybe not as big a thing coming into a Supercars weekend. There's definitely a lot of rivalry, a lot of competitiveness going on there. But I know previously in some of the more social outings, we've had someone like a Tim Redmond or a Will Devonish or whatever around, and after the first couple of rounds, we all just end up running a Tim setup or a Will setup because they've got the ability to tune a car and get it to work pretty well. Look, credit on that as well to Lewis Wedding, who's done some work on the F1 series he's been running. Maybe not for every car, but definitely at least for qualifying, there is a setup out there for the dedicated qualifying car that is maybe not the fastest it could be, but is definitely approachable. And it's something that, the likes of a Luke Rosella or a Kurt Stenberg can qualify. It's also someone the likes of myself or a Nathan Higginson or maybe perhaps a Jesse Bennett can also get in and qualify without being so far outside the 105% that's unrealistic.
That's right.
But,
I know I haven't taken part in much had much to do with the F1 series. So it's just something that I guess I've helped get those servers up and fine tune a few things in the background to keep things running. But I've been sort of happy to let that sort of thing go for most of the series so far. But it's just been one of those things that I think there's just been a lot of people that have wanted to offer some help in some way, shape or form this year. And whether it's Will or Tim doing laps with people in servers, whether it's people building cars, putting things up, it's just been one of the years that I just think is just, after some of the trials and tribulations that the league has been through over the last couple of seasons, especially with certain individuals that are no longer part of the league, through what they've done, it's just the league's just bounced back bigger and stronger this year.
Absolutely, and with how things are looking like. Coming into Enduro Cup as well, there's some good running for the guys. A lot of guys, coming to their fourth or fifth season of endurance racing, and some guys definitely, getting ready to get started in enduro racing, and especially for those guys in Dev Series and the guys in Super 3 as well. That start of the season, they maybe were planning that, have a relatively quiet start to the year. I know there are some of the guys in Super 3 that maybe take offense to the idea of being quiet. People like sort of the pace you've seen out of your Jesse Bennett's and your Darren Lognans, who, Darren's gone from winning Super 3 in a fairly well-contested battle to, I'm actually be winning Super 3 if not for his teammate. Angus Brown's been having a good run as well. And I made an allusion to this in the the Bend. Hidden Valley's coming up in the Bend round in the broadcast interviews that I got into, that even recently Cracker's doing pretty well. And I know that Crack and I, back when we started at the end, the start of 2023, start of 2022, we were talking about, do we run Super 2? Does one of us run Super 3? Do we both run Super 3? And then we both ran Super 3. We took teams. We took the teams title last year. I think actually as things sit currently, we're in a good stead to take teams title this year. With the exception, we'd take teams title if not for skill issue. But considering the pace of skill issue, I'm happy to come second to those guys this year in teams. But yeah, like even for Crackers popping up into that same bracket of the guys that we're seeing in Super 3 that could be Super 2, and definitely, next year when there's no weight on the table, when there's no precedence to say, oh, but look, you run the first half of the season here, and if we promoted you, we have to promote like half a dozen of you. Next year the way things are looking, there's going to be a big shake-up in Dev Series, and some guys are going to end up fighting for Super 2 titles, Super 3 titles, and it's going to be a really good series with where things are going. Just the interest as a whole, we've got 30 odd people registered. We've got a queue of 6 or 7 people trying to get in. It's mental. Yeah. So it's just a really good community spirit going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not wrong. There's the spirit is high, and the fact of the matter is we've still got the better part of 4 months of the year to go, including the signature event of the year, which everybody looks forward to, which is the Bathurst 500 coming up in October. So, it's hard to believe that that's only 2 months away, almost to the day, 2 months away, to the biggest event that we have in our series. All right, warm-up is now finished. We are advancing across to race number 2. So everybody has had their chance to gather themselves after that last race. We have inherited 2 more drivers, Phil Boak and Hans Brunswick, who didn't make race 1. They will be off the back of the grid for race number 2. So some more points for their respective teams, which is good to see. So that means 2 PBF Motorsport cars and at least 1 of the Fuchs HSP dealer team cars as well. All right, so another 32 laps, Rody. So
yep.
What did we take? What was the timeline in that last race? I mean, the laps total take about a minute 12 to a minute 15, depending on the lap times we're tracking on. So it's sort of about a 40-minute race, give or take the safety car that was in there as well. So be prepared here for at least another 40-minute hit out, I think. You drivers at least have worked out a couple of things by now.
This is going to be a big night. We are pushing into past 10:30 for a finish time, and it's just one of the things that happens with the big races. I think one of the little things we miss out on is we're getting, I think right now, is a bit of service sync to click in as well. But just make sure I am still. No, I am in the server. There we go. All right, that was the server doing the sync. Yep. So we are not far off getting underway though.
Yeah, looks like everybody's gridded up with the exception of Phil Boak. And I'm not sure if that's just because he wants to start from pit lane or if he's just a fashionably late entrance. Not 100% sure. Did he actually make it to the grid?
He did.
There we go. All right, off we go. Formation lap for race number 2 tonight.
Alrighty, starting from pole again, based on the progressive grid, will be Luke Rosella. Pretty strong run from him in race number 1, although that won't help, cleaving the wall on the outlap. Hope that doesn't come with any attended damage. Second will be Will Devonish. Pretty good, strong run with the exception of the pace of Luke Rosella there. He's just again looking to set himself up and really sort of help pad out that lead that he's developed so far in the driver's standings. Seth Brown in third. He's the big wild card in terms of pace. He's got no team's title. He's got no driver's title to worry about. He's just out there for himself and to prove himself. And, a podium on your debut in Supercars is definitely not a bad place to start. Zach Brown will be starting from 4th PBF Engineering. He's had a good run as well in race number 1, as had Lockie Lock from 5th for Amped Up Racing. And Brendan Ross, he didn't look too pleased, but again, 6th is a good haul of points for him for Real Hot Pixel Racing Team. 7th is Cox, very strong run at the back end of the race there out of the restart. Tim Redmond surviving up to 8th in the end, so that's good points for him considering the 1 foot. 9th is Anthony Green, pretty quiet run actually for him, but it's some good points in the end with Brenton Foley in 10th. Cam Rutley starting out of 11th for this one. With Dan Liccardo in 12th, he's got some work to do. He was battling up there with Zach Brown and Lockie Lock. Noah Tara from 13th as well. He's got a bit of work to do as well to get back to where he feels he probably should be. 14th is Stuart McNichol, actually a bit of an improvement for him over qualifying result. With Curtis McManus in 15th, he's got a bit of work to do as well. 16th is Bailey Hall. 17th is Steve Warwick. 18th is Peter Thrower. 19th will be Darryl Callahan, having a pretty quiet run, but still a good run, good haul of points. And of the guys to GNF to race 1 is Ethan Knight ahead of Nathan Higginson. with the 2 race starters in Phil Boak for PBF Motorsport and Hans Brunswick running the orange Fuchs HSB dealer team Commodore.
There you go. Just waiting on the lights now for race number 2 to get underway. And another 32 laps. Here we go. Oh, and there's been a penalty, a jump start for Seth Brown. There you go. Just as we were getting ready to transition to the lights, Seth Brown is going to have to tour the pit lane. So he's got a penalty. And he's also way out of control there as well. I think he got a bit of a love tap going on the wrist. There's pinballs going on all back and forth throughout the field. Devonish getting a little bit of a bit mugged as well. And Cox around at the second corner. So all kicking off at the beginning there.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to look, Rody. There was action up front. There was a jump start for Seth Brown. There was a tag. Seth Brown got tagged on the run to turn number 1. And then there was all sorts of ricocheting and pinballing going on at turn 1 and 2.
Like, these guys do know this is a 32-lap race. They don't, it's not a 2-lap race. The way they're racing,
it was in the regs, yes.
Yeah, it was in the regs. They do know this race is 32 laps. The way they're driving at turn 1, it looked like it was it looked like they were trying to do a safety car restart there. I don't know whether they maybe were sitting on emotions that they managed to, I say they managed to hold, but we saw how that restart went. That was pretty similar, but we're underway.
Well, here we go.
About to finish the first racing lap.
Very quickly.
Ahead of Luke Rosella.
Very quickly, just having a look at what happened to Daniel Cox here. Yeah, he was another one of those snooker moments going into turn number 2. And I don't know how to judge that one. He was trying to start the guy in front, gave him a bit of a rub, and then the guy behind him sort of got snookered into the back of him. So that, could be another one of those issues. Best left as a steward's thing to say, well, it looks like to me it's a bit of a racing incident.
Yeah, got a pretty fierce battle going on now for first and second. Actually, second and third are currently off the Pixel cars with how that start went. Luke Rosella look on the inside. Not really a passing spot there, and he's forced well on the grass to do it.
And safety car. Safety car thrown. It'll be what's happened just down at turn number 1 as well. So Seth Brown's so lucky he just got his penalty served with all of that just went down as well. Now the real question's going to be, what on earth did that pass happen before the safety car was called? Now, I don't know. But first of all, we're going to have a look at what happened at down turn 1 and 2 again, because that's what's triggered the safety car. Seth Brown was in the lane by now. There he is in the back of shot. So he's actually served his drive-through penalty. So he's in the box seat here. Thrower was around. What happened here? Ethan Knight's come from a long way back. Oh, it's Steve Warwick into Higginson, into Licata, and then Knight went spinning out of control. So that's what's caused the safety car to be triggered, is the calamity down at turn number 2. There goes the safety car. I can see it. It's just left the lane now.
Like, I will say Knight was involved. And I was actually, credit to Knight, I've just gone back and had a look. He
evasive action.
He separately, I think he separately just missed his brake pedal entirely. Managed to find the gap between Steve Warwick and Kodo Segmars. My replay very much says there wasn't a gap there, but he managed to find it nonetheless. No cars made contact with him. He just did a little flick spin off the tyre bundle down the back end of turn 2. But that was actually a good run for Knight, all things considered, aside from the fact he missed his brakes. But yeah, I said, these guys, this is a 32-lap race. The energy that we're seeing does not seem to indicate that everyone believes it's a 32-lap race. Somebody believes this race will end in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like the old Sesame Street rhyme of, one of these things does not look like the other. And like race 1 compared to race 2, just like chalk and cheese at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, there's a bit of a calamity in the pit lane at the moment. 4 cars decided to stop. Redmond, Higginson, Thrower, and Daniel Cox. And, of course, Thrower and Redmond share a pit boom as well. So there was a little bit of miscommunication there about who was in the lane at the right time and who had sort of right of the way. They tried to actually make the double side-by-side stack thing work. But Thrower, I think, is lost out in that one there. Cox receives a penalty for speeding on pit lane.
Oh, that's going to sting.
That will hurt. That's not what you wanted.
No, I'm just looking at the lead track for the safety car.
It's coming up to the last corners
It's trimming.
now.
No, it's going around again. It was taking a very, very inside line, the same line we see from drivers when they're planning on pitting. So it's hard to tell, but that'll be the racing line the safety cars dictated to take through that section. But yeah, I was just making sure that the guys who were pitting were going to get back on the back of the train before that we got going. I probably won't get lapped.
Well, Brown's taking the bait now as well. I've just seen him peel off to the side. Oh, and he's just been pinged, I think, for going.
Stop go.
No, he's been given a stop go. What did he get that for? Now, was he too fast entering? Or did he shortcut the circuit or something?
No, unless he hasn't. Unless passing.
Oh, no.
I mean, he was ahead of the cars in the train. He might have passing cars.
Possibly. Possibly.
Unless.
I'm going to have a bit of a look just to see. I'm looking at this on the replay now. So it happened. Like, he sped up. He's actually. Yeah, he's got it stopped before the line. So he has been. Yeah, he's actually gone ahead of the car he was following when he entered pit lane. And that's probably something that I think is probably illegitimate. Probably not going to be. Probably needs to be something that probably end up being cleared, I think.
Yeah,
all that's happened is he's gone ahead of the car that he was following when he came in for his stop. But I mean, he's going to come out behind the car anyway. So,
like, the only thing I know that throws stop goes is if you go and unlap yourself and then pit, it occasionally just likes to chuck a hissy. But I don't think he was in a position where he was caught behind the safety car. So, no, he wasn't. So I don't know what's happened there.
Yeah, I think race control will be looking into that one and trying to figure out. Yeah, that's definitely not one of those penalties that needs to actually be applied. So. Surprised to see that one being rescinded, and in fact I think race control is actually picking that penalty from him at the moment. So that will just leave Daniel Cox, and there it goes. Yeah, I've just seen live races timing has been updated to reflect that penalty's been withdrawn. So not a legitimate penalty at all, but the one for Daniel Cox, yes, absolutely speeding on pit lane. That is hands down penalty, because that's usually the penalty that gets handed out when you jump into pit lane. And you are too fast, you get a drive-through, you don't get a stop-go, but you get a stop-go under safety car when you are ahead of the car you should be following and you don't redress the position. But in this case, he was heading for pit lane.
Yeah, and it might just be simply because he passed a timing point on the track and was ahead of the cars, or passed a relevant sector on the track and was ahead of the cars ahead of the cars on track when it happened. But yeah, that'll be why it threw a stop-go. Because yeah, you've got to do something pretty excessive for the game just so there's a stop-go, because it's very happy chucking you drive-throughs. You've got to be pretty egregious to pick up a stop-go. So I'm pretty sure that would have been something to do with it. But
I'm actually just seeing in the live chat at the moment, Daniel Cox is saying no way you sped. So I think he might be referring
about
himself.
He possibly might be. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether speed was missing an E and whether he was trying to shorthand something. But that's possibly it as well.
And that he was calling himself a sped.
Yeah.
One of the two.
The advantage at least Cox, well, I mean, you didn't do it on a safety car, but the way this race is going, I don't think we're going to have one.
No.
So, but I think I'm not sure I don't want to be too hard going again. So a quick little look at the top, the order as it currently exists. So Rosella in first, but question marks over whether that was done before the safety car came out. Will Definition second. He might have just been ahead. Ross currently in third as a result of how everything else has turned out. Zach Brown fourth. Dan Liccardo back up to fifth. Keep in mind, he started 12th. So he's back to where he should be, right behind Zach Brown. He's had a monumental start. Then we've got Foley in 6th, Lockie Lock in 7th, Bailey Hall up to 8th. That's an 8-spot improvement. That's the best of the lot. Cam Rutledge in 9th, Anthony Green in 10th, and then McNichol, Tara, Warwick, Igmanis, and Hans Brunswick actually up 8 spots as well. And Phil Boak not far behind him as well. So they've tucked in fairly well and got up the field. I'm not sure if we're going. We're going.
Yeah, we are. We're going live again. So at the end of lap 5, so 3 laps under safety car, it peels in. 8 minutes already elapsed, so at least it didn't happen at the other end of the race this time around. And we go green again. Rosella will bring the field to the line. He's going to do exactly the same trick that he did at the restart last time. Take them all the way down to the line and then hit the gas pedal, and off we go. And it looks like Liccardo actually got a really good jump out of the mid-pack there, because he's gazumped Zach Brown on the run to turn number 1 quite handsomely there. So he judged that restart to perfection, moves up to fourth, but looking down his own fourth, and he's turned Ross, and Ross goes around. I saw that coming from a mile away.
Yeah, good reactions from everyone else. That was only one car that was caught up in that. But yeah, that was. Oh no, Higginson into the back of Knight as well at turn 3.
Yep. So there's a couple of incidents here. So Ross now unfortunately caught short in that one. I dare say this one probably is going to end up in the stewards' books if I know my real Pixel Holden Racing Team drivers. So here we go. Liccardo, the gap was sort of there, and I think that's probably a little bit late.
Yeah, I think he was trying to do too much with it. He very much could have made up space under brakes and caught Ross on the corner, but I don't think, from how far back he was, it's a long braking zone there, but not under safety car. you're not really making that move. Speaking of making moves, 3 wide into the hairpin. Seth Brown trying to get past Higginson and Ethan Knight over 18th. Keep in mind, it's over 18th for Seth Brown, but we saw the way he processed the cars in Dev Series. He's going to make some big moves, as is Higginson, diving back up the inside of Seth Brown at the last corner.
Yep, he dived through there. Just saw that happen at the backside of the image that we're looking at now. There's a big trolley train here at the moment with Ricardo at the head. And there's some teammate-on-teammate action a bit further down there as well. Noah Tara trying to get through on his teammate Lockie Lock at the same time as Seth Brown picking his way back through the field, looking down the inside of Nathan Higginson at turn 2. And Higginson's very sideways, very wide and very much in the wall.
Yep, that'll do it.
Yep, so Brown picks off another spot. And this will be a real true test of colours for him, I think, at the moment, just to see how far he can actually get. Callahan knows the gig. He's raced against him a few times already now in development series. And says, you know what, you're not in my league and you're not in my race. I'm going to let you go through. That's a smart thing to do. Then it's actually inadvertently opened up the door for Higginson to go through as well. And Brown up to 17th. Next man up is going to be Redmond.
Yeah, and yeah, based off Dev Series, he's having a good crack, and that's, I think what the thing is the difference is the guys in Dev Series actually benefiting a little bit from having raced against Seth last week. They know that he'll find a way through, so you might as well just give it to him. Fastest lap there as a 12.3 from Luke Rosella.
What's on earth
as
is
he
going
starts
on
to
here
away
in the last
lead.
corner? It's like 3 wide, then 2 wide. It's not Noah's Ark. I don't know what it was. They were all lining up to go one way or the other.
Yeah, I was watching Redmond trying to get a move done on Phil Boak, and now Seth Brown's trying to do the same thing up at turn 2. Yeah, there's just a different energy in this race.
Yeah, a little
Another
bit of
yellow flag, runs week down at turn 2.
Yeah, so they all had to clear the pedal, or their attempts at making a pass pretty quickly because the yellow flag was out. Don't know if Brunswick was assisted around there or not. While we keep an eye on that battle, we might actually go and have a little bit. I'll have a look just back behind the scenes and just see what actually happened there. And actually, no, he's just out making himself involved down the escape road all by himself.
Yeah, he's enough to do. He's having a little charge back through the field. Him and Phil Boak actually. Phil Boak's sort of fallen back now with some of the quicker guys like Tim Redmonds and the Seth Browns got to the back of him. But he's missed race 1, so really for Phil, it's just a point scoring endeavour. He's currently having fun with Nathan Higginson over 16th. But yeah, the charge continues for Seth Brown. Another fastest lap there for Luke Rosella, just piling them on, just trying to get a bit of clearance from Will Devonish.
Redmond back up the inside just ahead of Seth Brown as well. He's not making it easy for the rookie, and Phil Boak not making it easy for him as well. So just again ahead here, Redmond in the Huna Kiwi number 43, tucked in behind Rutledge, but very, very much on the defence from Brown, who's actually showing remarkable patience at the moment just to try and find a way through here. This is something that I think we've seen plenty of drivers over the years come into from the development series into supercars and really sort of try it again, as you rightly pointed out, Brody, do too much with it. But for Brown, that's probably that's a remarkable bit of patience and a remarkable bit of driving just to wait for the situation to unfold for himself.
It is interesting actually looking at the different, and maybe it's just sort of where they're at within their own pace bracket or the different approach there. I was watching Seth Brown and Higginson both process through Rutledge and Redmond. There was a bit of contact between Redmond and Brown. I think Redmond maybe just was a bit out of position, just maybe not quite where he wanted to be, and sort of got a little bit of a shuffle from Brown in the end. But Brown waited to get through them very cleanly. Higginson kind of lent on everybody he could find to get around the track and get past them. It wasn't like he ran them off the track, as he's just got into Brown and run him off the track.
That's right. So Brown, unfortunately, just he comes back on probably as best as he actually could, I think, there.
I think that's probably worthy of a redress, if I'm honest.
Yep. Oh, and then Higginson's in the wall, and
that'll achieve it.
I was about to say, yeah, that'll achieve it, and then Higginson's out over and out as a result. So I don't think that that waited sort of too long. So we can see here, we go back to the old replay here down at the hairpin. So Brown was wide all on his own, and I guess they were sort of leaning on each other a little bit there, and then yeah, Higginson sort of finished the job. And then, I don't know what happened to Higginson a bit further up the order. If we go on board here as Brown comes around the corner, the next thing is, Higginson turns straight into the fence, and that was it.
Yeah, I'm just looking around. I think I'm not sure he's got a car problem or what, or maybe he's trying to redress something. I know he's back up to speed now. He was, yeah, that was odd. Oh, I've just got back to the train, and Ross and Ethan Knight. at the slow chicane.
Yeah, so there we go, and another safety car.
And a safety car, which will do it.
There we go. I was actually looking at a slightly different battle a bit further up the order with Bailey Hall and co here. Just sort of fighting and arguing. Now, I expect everybody, or the majority of people, to be in this time around, and here we go. There's a log jam in pit lane already. Rutledge, Boak, Redmond, Thrower, those guys were in earlier. Callahan. So the safety car comes out and falls at precisely the right time for them, and Warwick as well. They're in the lane, so they're getting this over and done with right now.
I said it when we started, there is a different energy. You said it, chalk and cheese. There is a different energy to this race. I don't know where it's come from and why it's here. I'm not saying I don't like it, but I just wish it wasn't so excessive. Like it's like a soft tire sprint race, but turned up to 11, but they're on hards. And it's everyone trying to win the race that ends within the next lap. But this is a 32 lap race, and that won't work. No, everybody but Redmond has gone through the lane.
Safety car leaves right in front of Steve Warwick as well. So we'll come back to that in a minute. All right, here's the replay of what happened with Brendan Ross and Ethan Knight. So Knight was actually ahead of Redmond and behind Ross in this little sequence. So he came through fast chicane here and went through okay there. Game glitches there. Ross went down the inside of Tim Redmond, and he actually locked it and got into Ethan Knight. So that's the first problem. So Ross's mistake there, and then the problem here is they both came to a sudden stop. Ross started reversing onto track. They both reversed onto track. They're both stationary at this point. There goes Seth Brown. That's a safety car trigger. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah, so everybody that can be in the lane is in the lane. The exception is Hans Brunswick, I think, is slowing down a little bit, trying to give some room to... No, he wasn't trying to give room to a car in front. He moves to pit lane
now,
speed.
this is interesting. This is interesting. There's been a change for the effective lead of the race. Rosella has come in, so too and Will Devonish, and Rosella has long stopped. So there's been a change there. So I wasn't expecting that.
I don't know whether... no, we're 20. We are exactly 20 laps from the end. I don't know. Maybe different planning ahead. Maybe we'll. I said earlier for Coxie, this wouldn't be the only safety car, and I don't like being right in this case, but I was right. Look, the way this race is going, they could. I'm not saying it's a whole field issue, but if they calm down a little bit, they might not have a third. But if they have a third, then short field might be the way to go about it.
This is the problem here, right? So watch out. So you've got Brown and Liccardo who are on the lead lap. They are now pitting. That is actually going to put other cars on the lead lap, but it's also going to put several drivers behind the safety car that are out of sequence here. So Boak's going through. There goes Callahan. He's going through. I'm just keeping an eye on things here. And you're right, Egmanis and Brown now right behind the safety car. Now, Brown's already stopped. He stopped under the first safety car.
Yeah.
So Egmanis is the only one that has not stopped here. So my, how the safety cars have fallen tonight, have set up a couple of different things here. So Egmanis, Brown, and then Will Devonish and Luke Rosella. That is your top four. Zach Brown is fifth, but he's in the lane at the moment. He's actually just been passed by Brent Foley on track. So Foley goes up to fifth. Then Locke, Bailey Hall, who was running fifth on the road when the safety car was called, and then he came into the lane, I think, fairly quickly, followed by Zach Brown, Noah Tara, and Dane Liccardo. That's the 10. So it's mixed this order up quite substantially, and I'm seeing Brendan Ross has come into the lane, what looks like for, I'm not sure if that's for the second time, because he was 15th, but he was also down the order. So I think he's waited for everybody to cycle through the lane and then sort of come in unabated and just, get his tyre stop done, just put as much, tyre preservation into the car as he possibly can, and as much fuel as he needs, make sure the calculations are spot on, and then off we go. I'm not sure whether the Luke Rosella stop was a long stop because they didn't adjust the fuel from what they were originally planning, if it was going to be a green stop and flag race, but then they have had 2 safety car periods now as well. So someone's got the math right, someone's got the math wrong, but they're line stern, those 2 drivers, so they're going to be duking it out at the restart here anyway. Yeah,
the interesting thing about is that Egmanis is in the lead, race number 101 now for Egmanis, but he's off strategy. The next car in the queue for him on strategy, not on track. Next car for him in the queue is actually Ethan Knight, because neither of them are pitted. Ethan Knight just managed to luck out sort of with where he's fallen versus Chemo. I think actually Knight is even a lucky dog.
Got the lucky dog. So I was about to say
that
Knight,
gets him out of the way.
Yeah, Knight's the only car a lap down at the moment. So that's what I was looking at. Is like, hang on a minute. You just said he was, on strategy, but I'm like, no, he actually did not pit. He was trapped because he was in that situation with Brendan Ross where he must have actually come into the lane under the safety car, being trapped, and by everybody else coming through and cycling through the lane and cycling through behind the safety car, he's then being caught out, and then the game's lucky.
Yeah, so, alright, well, I'll go back to the point I was making is that he's first on the road, but he's not first on strategy. The first car on the lead strategy, or what we think is the lead strategy, I mean, there's so many strategies that are on play right now, is Seth Brown, who is on older tyres than the two behind him. And I will say he did have actually the advantage of having the 22nd place car of Knight to act as a buffer brake. He doesn't anymore. He's got to try and get a move done on Termo very, very early, because he will have marginally fresher tyres, and then try and do something about a gap. Because Will's biggest issue is going to be what Luke's doing. It's not really what the cars in front. They will catch and pass him eventually, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to be too engrossed in their own little two-car battle to worry about what's happening in front. And maybe there's still going to probably be another pit stop somewhere in this race, I reckon. It's going to be for Brown to try and make something of.
Yeah. Now, I dare say, because we're not bunching up behind the safety car and bunching the field up here, safety car's actually not going in this lap. That's my read on the situation, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. No, we are going around again.
Going around.
I had seen, because the field was still quite strung out, that it didn't look like we were going live again. And that's good news for Cox and Knight, because Cox has come into the lane, I think, for a second time to top off or change some tyres, and then Knight, that'll allow him to get around onto the back of the train before we go back to green flag running anyway. So it's amazing how that's worked out. So by the end of lap 15, we should have a field of near capacity. It was 23 starters, it is now 22, because Higginson's not finished from that front straight incident, that will be ready to tackle the second half of this race. It has shaken the order up, no doubt about that. The real question is, which strategy is the correct one? You've got Seth Brown, who stopped really, really early in that piece in the first safety car, fell to the back of the field, had to work his way through. He didn't stop on the second safety car. That puts him as the net race leader once Igmanis comes in to take his stop. But his tyres will definitely be much, much older than the cars behind him. Devonish, he jumped Luke Rosella in the stops. They have the same age of tyres, but different fuel loads most likely. So is someone under-fueled, or is someone over-fueled, or did someone get the calculation wrong, or did they get it right, or what are they planning to do? But at the end of the day, they will be fighting it out at the restart here. That's the bit that we need to keep an eye on from them. Brenton Foley, he's snuck up the order after all of that as well, through all the stops. So he's in a pretty handy spot, 5th place with a gain of 5 places at the first half of this race. Lockie Lock is down 1. And Bailey Hall's jumped up 9. He's flying that Beyond Racing Young Guns flag as proudly as he possibly can right now. Can he hold on? He's got some happy memories of this place in Development Series. He's definitely looking for a good result. And then Zach Brown in 8th, Naratara in 9th, Ricardo in 10th with that little incident hanging over his head. And we are ready for a safety car restart. Here we go. At the end of lap 15, just a little bit under half the race gone. The old Murray Walker Lane, which is still half the race to go, or in our case, half plus 1 lap. Down to the line brings Igmanis with the field. Brett Brown right behind him. Race control issues a penalty from Brendan Ross for a stop go. I'm not sure what that was for. He definitely wasn't in the lane, so I expect that to be rescinded. Ethan Knight's got something similar hanging over his head as well as we go to the restart here. Igmanis leads the field through 1. Brown already having the lunge in turn number 2, and he's going to get this done, I fear, Rody.
Yeah, a couple of lunges through the package. You know what Tara's going to get through as well. Bailey Hall on Lockie Lock, and yeah, Luke Rosella still taking behind. Actually, Seth Brown now getting through on all contact there, and they're trying to go 3 wide here. Really wouldn't be advising doing that for the lead battle. 2 by 2 through the fast chicane. It's a 32-lap race, guys. You don't need to do this. Oh, and they've got out of the side just. Will Devon actually using Seth Brown as a pick to separate himself from Luke Rosella.
Yeah, Igmanis shortcuts the chicane there. Yellow flags are out as well. Just as some passing moves are being sized up. I think Rosella was trying to go actually round the outside here. We do have that down the inside there. Now Devonish goes through on his teammates, so that's teammates working together here at the moment, and they're allowed to. As Rosella gives a little bit of a short back and sides there, as was trying to get into the lane, and Termo's trying to get to the lane, and Brown now going through on, who's that there? I think that was Brenton Foley to regain third place. Just a question in the chat from Jesse Bennett. Yes, Seth Brown did do his drive-through penalty. He did serve that between the safety cars.
Yeah, so he's clear to go for now. Yeah, in the end, interesting shakeout. I would have figured he probably would have been not far off in. So McManus at least is planning on, I think with his strategy, he's not wanking around the safety car. He's sort of planning to go from here, split it right down the middle as it turned out. Foley in a good battle now with Seth Brown. Foley's going to have slightly fresher tyres and also a lot more experience. We're talking about the 2019 Series champion against the man who is only making his second start tonight in the ASR Supercars Championship. So he's very much still a fish out of water, but he's having a good run of it. Got a pretty stable run now behind Foley in fourth.
Yeah, the veteran moves through there at the first part of this lap and leads the way here in third place. Geez, it's been a long time between podiums for Brenton Foley. I think the last one was Simmons Plains last year, if memory serves me correctly. So he's still got a long way to go, though. But he leads the way in that battle for the last spot on the roster at the moment, as it stands right now.
Oh, there is an angry little battle. I say battle. We're going back to Wharf, really, coming up behind Liccardo, Zach Brown. Liccardo's trying to make a break away from Zach Brown, from Noah Turra, from Anthony Green, from Bailey Hall, trying to threaten to go three wide there. Stuart Nickel and Steve Warwick in the background as well. It's manic stuff.
Absolutely nuts to butt stuff at the moment. Liccardo's actually got a little bit of an air margin here over Zach Brown. Here comes Turra down the inside. And likewise, here comes Green on Bailey Hall. There's going to be two moves here. Green's going to pinball. And there we go. He's absolutely bowled Seth Brown round wide. I'm not surprised that the safety car has called again for the third time. And Zach Brown's wheels got higher than Joe Cocker there with the contact from Green at turn number 2. And that was, I didn't see that one coming. I thought Brown was going to be safely passed by Turra, and I thought that Hall was going to be safely passed by Green. I did not expect to see the rate of retardation of that Castrol Mustang go the way that it did. Here we go. Pretty obvious. This passing move from Turra was done. That passing move from Anthony Green was done. But then just look, it just like, you couldn't tell from that far back that he was braking too late. It just didn't look like it. It looked like it was fine.
Yeah, I've had this with GG3 where I've been up so far up someone's clacker that the brakes have just decided, yeah, no, we're not going to do this anymore. But yeah, it just, like, he braked at the right point, and like we've seen with a couple of drivers maybe not engine braking or what it was, he just didn't stop.
And Brown pits.
I wouldn't be surprised he did get he has a Mustang-sized hole in the front side of his car. I wouldn't be surprised to get some damage, or maybe just, again, you know,
and more pitters, more people pitting.
Could be the end of the the last safety car.
I should have rephrased that. Seth Brown pitting.
Seth Brown pitting. Sorry.
Yeah, so Zach Brown is definitely coming into the pit. So too the Beyond Mustangs and Lachlan Lock, they're coming in. But Seth Brown was the one that was curious for me. So that sort of, I guess, solidifies the argument. Maybe he felt like he couldn't get there on those tyres, but. Wow, yeah. I don't know whether whether he's having the feeling that he can't fight with these guys, because I did say, 2019 Series champion against the guy doing his second race start, but racecraft is there, race pace is there. He is allowed to race these guys for position, and he's doing a good job of it. So he's allowed to get, and maybe look again, big picture thinking. Man's not thinking about the next 2 laps. He's thinking about the end of this race. He's thinking, right, I've got a pit. I get this done under safety car. There might be another one, and maybe I'm better positioned then. So, yeah, that could entirely be it. This is late, but this is still within the window, definitely of a reasonable second stint from tyres. Well, I say second, it's going to be like third stint, I think, for him now. But, yeah, that's probably what it does. It gives him a third stint. And I don't know. I feel there might be an avenue that the guys in front consider pitting later in the race. Or, to be fair, it gets him a little bit far enough and back, but if the chaos happens around the top 10 where it's been happening for most of this race, he gets a bit of a bracket to not be involved in it and to react and get out of the way of it. And you know what? I'm looking to see whether there's a lucky dog being issued here or not. I'm wondering if there is. And I'm just seeing that Ethan Knight's making his way through the field, so I believe he's probably getting the lucky dog again here. He was a lap down, so I think he actually came in maybe toward the end, because he actually wasn't a lap down at the flag. Maybe he went 2 laps down after everything that had happened there. he's now back on the lead lap again. Maybe he came in right as that safety car was called again. I'm not 100% sure. We'll,
Possibly.
Work back through that. So after all of that, we had McManus back in the lane. I bet you, I'll tell you what, I bet you now, Rody, he's ruining not hanging on for another couple more laps if that was the safety car that was going to be called. But at the end of the day, he wasn't to know.
Exactly.
So he's now finds himself in 16th ahead of Seth Brown at 17th. So they've got, we're probably going to have the better part of about 10 laps to work together.
Yes.
To try and get back through this field. So field order. Devonish and Rosella, they're still the same way they were from the restart. Brent Foley third, Liccardo fourth, with Noah Turra in fifth. He's still looking for a good result this year. Bailey Hall, surprisingly for Bailey Hall, he still manages to find himself in sixth place at the moment. He's weathered everything that's been thrown at him at the moment, whether it's a passing move or going backwards through the field, whatever it is. He'll be really, really happy if the result at the moment stays the way that it is for him. McNichol in seventh, so he had a very, very average race one, but at the moment, just with everything that's been going on, he finds himself in P7, up 7 spots. And then you've got Steve Warwick, who's in Steve Burko's seat for the night. 8th place on the road for him. And then Brendan Ross, who got that really strange stop-go penalty at the restart there, before, which was cleared because he was definitely on the track, in 9th. And then Brunswick in 10th. I'm just trying to work out what that stop-go would have been for. It would have been for being out of place with something, but there were 2 cars that received stop-go penalties for being out of position. And I did see there was actually a message in the text chat that one of the drivers had asked that they'd been taken out under the safety car and what they actually were supposed to do. The way that works is you just need to come back on when you come back on. So I'm wondering if there's been some cars out of position at the restart because of what's happened. And that's what's thrown a few of those stop-go penalties around.
Yeah, it might have been a situation right towards the end where we didn't catch the back of the train. Maybe someone's checked up at the checked up more than the train, or checked up more than they thought they were going to, coming in for the last couple of corners, and someone hasn't reacted in time, and it's just sprayed cars, which we have seen happen before. But the interesting point from that sort of top 10 roll through that we went through, actually Hans Brunswick in 10th as well. The interesting point from all that is for me is Stewart, because he was advertised to me as somebody that can do Leonard's pace but not as consistently. And to be fair, this is about the point where we might see Leonard. But I'm not sure whether it's a strategy, I'm not sure whether it's a similar thing as Bailey, where he just got out of trouble, because you're right, his race one wasn't setting the world on fire. But look, if he's maybe over the last race and a bit has found pace, maybe this is where he eventuates out, or maybe the same thing as Hall, and he's just hanging on, surviving. But that's something that I'm at least personally going to keep an eye on for the second half. We've already started the second half. What feels like the second half of this race.
Yeah, considering that those two are also going to be pairing together for the Enduros as well. We're going back to green flag, by the way. So safety car in after only a couple of laps. So that was a very short safety car period, and I don't think a lot of drivers are actually prepared for it. Devonish sort of backing the field up a little bit late compared to what Rosella has done for the last couple here. Yellow flags are still out. Yellow flags are just being withdrawn now, so leader's prerogative to go when he gets to the start-finish line. Still another 12 laps to go for this one. We're completing lap 21. And here we go. Off we go again. First time Devonish has led a restart to the line tonight. First of the laps that he has led since the beginning of race number 1. He's got a race control for a drive-through penalty. I don't know what that's for. That's popped up all by itself. He definitely kept them all the way to the line there. This has been a bit of a weird race so far, Rody, for what's been throwing out with the penalties.
The only thing I could say is I'm pretty sure the restart speed is 80, and he had the train doing 60 to the line, so maybe he got flagged for being too slow on a safety car.
Possibly, but at the same time, I think the safety car... Oh, actually, it says here, server said cannot wave green yet, so there we go. That'll be what it is. I just got a message in the server chat that he couldn't wave the green because the safety car had actually taken its time to actually get back into the pit lane, and that's why I think a few drivers were causing some problems here. Now I think that probably is end up going to be removed.
So we're seeing a similar thing. I still don't think it's gone green yet. I think we're seeing a similar thing to what we saw in Dev Series, where we had a delayed start, and similar thing to what we saw, I think, 2 years ago, where we had a delayed start for a lap. So I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, so this is what's happened here. The safety car couldn't actually throw the green flag. So, and this is a problem that we did have. It is a long pit entry. You have to leave, and the Higginson in the chat's actually right, and so too is Lewis. You have to leave space for the safety car. You can't just check up and then you've got to let it get into pit lane. It's one of those things that happens here at this track. And there we go. Oh, it's a calamity on the front straight. I'm not 100% sure what to do in this situation, Roddy. I see everybody getting stop-go penalties and things coming up as well, and they're all just going to have to be cleared. I don't think anybody really knows what the situation is here, but the riot act's going to be getting red after this one for sure.
Yeah, I think clear penalties. I think Seth was fair because I think he passed someone before the line, but that's something we can address ourselves and just give us room later.
Yes,
but
right.
yeah, it's just the race has taken. The game has taken the energy that we're throwing first half of the race and said, you know what, you can have it back, and that's what it's doing. It's, I mean, it's more exciting racing to call than race one, but I don't want this racing. I'll take race one over this racing. But it's what it is. It's what we've been handed.
That's right.
So, yeah, I'll get back into racing after a.
Oh, someone's around. Steve Warwick. I just
around.
saw Steve Warwick around and Anthony Green around as well. And there's it's a major catastrophe going on back there. And
Jesus.
Safety car called. Safety car
and
called and again. And
at this point, I think it's done more laps than Higginson.
Can't draw that.
Well, at least in like he did DNF earlier, it mathematically it does. Yeah, I wasn't on go and he goes just. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, there's a bit to digest out of this, and I'm not quite 100% sure what's going on. There's actually a few things going on here. So looking at the replay here, I think Ethan Knight just came across everything that was going on all at once here. So somebody was around.
Steve Warwick.
Yeah, unsighted. Yeah, just completely unsighted. There was a bunch of activity going on there.
Oh, okay. So Steve Warwick's bounced off of Stuart McNichol, the bus train accelerate into Boundary Street. And then from there.
We're getting replays. We wind this back now. So here we go. So Warwick having a look. His 8th and 7th place here for McNichol. He's up the inside of Boundary Street. He just got a little bit of a tag there, inside wall, and then just pinball back into traffic, grabs Green, Lock hits him, so too does Knight, and there's just and Callan caught up as well. So
yeah, I'm not sure what Warwick could have done.
No,
better there, because like and nothing else. The idea is you hold station, and it would have been a yellow flag at that point. And I think some of the guys behind, and yeah, I like Lewis has raised it. Well, it's not it's I think it's too honest of a fact, but to be fair, it is an honest fact sometimes that slowing down in yellows don't always fall in the same sentence for people on a racetrack. And I've been there myself. I know about it. I'm guilty as well. But yeah, you just so keen to get a race done that you just want to push through and quite physically push through the rest of the race. And what that's resulted in is we've missed whatever happened to Anthony Green, but he's out of the race. Actually, I think he was out as part of that as well. So he's out from that crash. Ethan Knight is out from that crash. Callahan and Warwick are both in the pit lane from that crash. Yeah. Like, yeah, if I didn't have things to do tomorrow, I would be entertaining a stiff drink after this.
Yeah, well, I've already had 2 wines tonight, and I feel like I need another after this. This is just, I don't know what to say. After all the praise I heaped on a lot of people in between races, I think it's just gone to people's heads.
I think there's a couple of things that could very much be attributed to single people. I think is everybody's had too many jelly beans.
I think they've had more than jelly beans, mate. I think they've actually had a whole packet of bloody sugar.
Yeah, they've just sat there and
Slurpees.
they've just elmowed sugar off the desk.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like lines, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Suck it up.
That was the thing I was referencing. That trying to go straight to drug paranoia.
Yes,
But yeah, that's the emo meme that everyone knows. Yeah, that's kind of I think what's happened is everyone's just gone a little bit too hyper this race. I mean, look, this is the thing. It's going to come back and bite people. They're going to get 4 months. There's 4 or 5 months left of the season. You know, this race could ultimately be the one that people could look back on and go, "This decided my season." Just by virtue of how they acted or how things fell their way. So, you know, this this could be a race people want to forget, but this could be a race people are going to be forced to remember as well.
Yeah, that's right. And look, I am contemplating something that I don't particularly want to do, but it might be a simple case of the fact I think we've, what have we been going for now? 2 3/4 hours, and normally broadcasts are over by now. And we're doing driver interviews. I'm actually tempted to say no more interviews for tonight. I think some of the standard of driving has been, especially down, I don't want to take anything away from the top 3 guys from the 2 races, but I just think that some of the driving's been very, very average tonight, and I don't feel like I want to do too many more about it. I mean, it's a rare thing. I've not done this before, but the thought is crossing my mind right now.
That, like something I will throw up at least. Then, what's our format for Hidden Valley?
3 races.
Beautiful. All right. Well, if we're not interviewing people, there are a few people I do want to talk to, but I'm interviewing people. We'll put them on the list to be interviewed as part of the big round review for Hidden Valley.
Yeah, I think.
Because I guarantee some of the drivers I want to talk to are probably going to be back for Hidden Valley as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair call. I think we might do that tonight. We might do something different for a change and just give everybody a chance to have a little bit of a discussion between themselves after this race and a bit of cool down. I think that egos will need to be, I wouldn't say egos don't need to be stroked, but egos need to be sent to the ice bath, I think, after this one, just so everybody can cool down.
Yeah. This is just, it's. I saw a comment 20 minutes ago that, you know, this is a Dev Series race. I saw a comment 5 minutes ago. There's the shades of Gold Coast, and it's rolling down that way.
Yeah, no, the guys are right. In the chat, the guys are absolutely right. And I've been monitoring the chat over the last couple of rounds, and it's been great having everybody in there jumping in and providing some great input over the course of the last couple of rounds. And I have been keeping an eye out for a couple of people that have been, you know, contributing as regularly as they have been, and you know, potentially eyeing up some prize packs to hand out for some of those key contributors. But it's great to have some on board. And I'm not going to mention names at the moment here, but it looks like we're going back to a
getting
restart
underway,
finally.
yes. So the important thing is Will has given a much bigger gap to the safety car than what he gave last time out, which very easy to forget to do with us having a couple of tracks. It's just by virtue of the pit lane and the relative comparison to the race speed. And you take a shorter line around the track than the safety car to get to the start-finish line. But we should get a proper green flag start. Now safety car is parking up now, so we should be green from this point onwards. Will can take as long as he wants. Probably going to run them up to the line again. It would make sense.
There we go, and off we go. Will Devonish gets them down to the line server. I'm looking at the server console. It says it's okay this time, so everything looks all above board. Devonish leads them through the restart. 6 laps to go. Foley in the game as well. He's eyeing off Rosella. Rosella in turn eyeing off Devonish, and then there was Hans Brunswick, who's in the sucker hole in the middle back here at the moment. He's getting sandwiched by Turra, and I think it was that Bailey Hall who's now got into the fence, and all that hard work has become undone for Bailey Hall. But then Brunswick is now left to fight it out with Turra here. Local yellows only. No safety car.
And that is good at least.
Devonish has thrown it! He's thrown it! He's thrown it off the road, pushed it too hard through the chicane, but he pops out the other side, keeping first place. But I didn't see the first part of it. I only saw the second part of it. I don't know what happened there, but that was something very, very strange. It's almost like he just missed the braking spot.
No, there was front to rear contact between Rosella and Devonish. I'm not sure whether Devonish was on the brakes early or maybe Rosella didn't participate in something or what happened there, but there was 2 cars to play in that incident. So, look, in terms of how things are shaken out, it's probably the best order, because if Rosella, potential bump and run, if he'd taken advantage of that, he's got the pace, he doesn't have a lot of laps to do anything with it. He's going to probably have the tyres, because they've been racing half this race in the yellow flag. But, yeah, I think the 2 battles to worry about in terms of the top positions is, you know, who's going to win this race and who's going to be on the podium. And at this stage, like, Dane Liccardo's a buy-in for third, but I mean, Hans Brunswick's charging up through the field, as is Noah Turra, who was having a look and is actually making a move on Brunswick.
He's got that move done as well. We're just watching Devonish play a little bit of defence with Luke Rosella. It's about 2 or 3 battles to watch here at the moment. Here's the move for the race lead. Devonish has to give up the spot to Rosella down the inside. He gets that move done. So there you go.
He throws off the corner. Foley could almost... he's not going to. Foley's smarter than that, but Foley had a run off the corner as well.
Brings Liccardo into play, though, as well, but I do fear that that's going to be short-lived. And the hard part, too, here, Rody. Rosella backs it into the corner. Jeez, I thought he'd thrown that as well, pushing very hard as well. The rear of the car was sliding across the track through the flip-flop chicane. But Devonish not there to capitalise. Every driver is just, as you said, it's just got like a sprint race feel, but with the hard tyres in play. So it's a very, very strange sequence of events. Brown now down the inside. That's the Seth variety at the hairpin. He gets that move done on Hans Brunswick, so he's up to P6. So even though he's stopped in that third safety car, he's moving forward, but is he going to run out of laps? That's the thing. We've got 4 more to go. Lap 29 of 32 laps remaining.
Yeah, so it's first clean run we've had in a while, so I reset the brain to that. But no, some really good. Oh no, Foley, he's sprayed it wide. He's given up his podium.
And there goes Dane Liccardo. But the thing that I want to bring up, Rody, with regards to the podium for Liccardo is, I know this is preempting something that we have to wait and see go into the stewarding reports, which I expect will go into the stewarding reports, is that because the field is so compressed with that safety car, the inevitable penalty is going to sting.
That was race 2, wasn't it?
It was race 2.
Yeah, race 2's been that long. I thought it was race 1. Yeah, that's a good point actually. That's potentially going to sting. So on the road at least, it would potentially be a podium for Liccardo. Whether it remains so after the race, I don't know. But nobody really wants to get a podium after the fact. If you're going to get a podium, you want to have it on race night. So that's Foley's buy into it, as is Tara's, as is Seth Brown, who's refusing to just disappear.
Yep, there he goes, and he doesn't disappear. Well, he does disappear down the inside of Noah Tara, so he gets 5th place there at the moment. But Tara's going to argue the point up to the final corner here. Brown's got to leave him some room, and he does. And
he gets a better run on the outside.
He gets a better run on the outside, though, too, because he was able to square the car off earlier and get the drive down and get those rear tyres to the ground earlier. So he makes that stick. Now, Tara's trying to follow him and go the long way around. Redmond now nabs Brunswick on the run through turn 1 and down to turn 2 as well. So Tim Redmond's occupying a healthy position at the moment inside the top 10. He is 7th. Brunswick is 8th. Daniel Cox 9th. And then Phil Boak. Geez, hasn't he had a run from the back of the field? He's up to 10th.
I didn't see that in all of that, but that's a really good run from Boak. He's just kept out of trouble, and trouble was brewing behind him. We got Curtis Igmanis and Zach Brown having a very mad little squabble over 11th place. Stuart McNichol buying in on that, as well as is Lockie Lock. Yeah, another truly trained foreman behind Zachariah Brown.
Yeah, so Seth Brown now, the best he can probably get to, I think, is going to be 4th. At this rate, he's going to have Foley down here at the hairpin. He's picked and timed his moves very, very nicely, I think. And this will be probably pretty pleasing for the authorities of the development series and the Supercar series to see that I think this probably justifies his place in the main game as it sits right now.
Absolutely.
And I think a few drivers in the development series might be glad to see the back of him. Even though he was taking all the wins off them, it just means that he wasn't in the championship picture anyway. But now comes the challenge for Brown. 2 laps to go, and Liccardo is the next man to go. There's Tara in the background. He's going to have a go at Brenton Foley as well, who was vulnerable after the Seth Brown pass. And Noah Tara is going to pick up. Yes,
not quite.
Maybe.
Might take another corner.
Thereabouts. Yeah, no, it's not going to take more than another corner.
Yep. Yeah, well, we said Seth Brown best of 4th. He's already up on the back of Dane Liccardo for 3rd.
Daniel Cox has also just passed Hans Brunswick for 8th place as well. So Brunswick is sinking like a stone here. I think he's probably just got a little bit too worn tyres and maybe went a little bit too early in the sequence of stops where some of these drivers came in through the last safety car, and they're reaping the rewards.
Absolutely. Yeah, good run for the guys at the back as well, just trying to get other spots in the top 10. Tim Redmond's actually found a resurgence of energy, as we noted as well. He's buying up now on the back of the battle for 5th and 6th. There's the battle for 3rd is raging on as well.
Battle for 3rd is raging on. Liccardo's going to play the defence here. Foley's gone around here, right? He's gone off the inside of the field. He's in the boonies.
Yeah, he had assistance from Tim there, which should be working to try and redress that. And he might still remain a top 10. No, Igmanis has just gone through as well.
Yeah, and Redmond, you can see here, is waiting to give that spot up. Now, they've got to be careful here too, because there's cars here, there and everywhere. Redmond's trying to give the position back to Foley, which he's done, and then it caused a little bit of a logjam. Right, Liccardo's playing defence on Seth Brown. Round turn number 2, he needs to give him the room. Brown just says, I'm coming through, and he gets the pass done. So that settles that problem, or little conundrum that a few people were looking at and going, well, you don't want to lose your podium by virtue of a penalty. Well, you've lost the podium now.
Yeah, I lost the podium by virtue of the sheer pace of the man in front of you.
That's right. So there you go. Well, at the end of the day, the top 3 from race number 1 are going to somehow be the top 3 from race number 2, even though about 30 minutes ago it didn't look like it. And after the better part of 50 minutes of racing, don't get me started on how it takes 50 minutes to complete 32 laps in a race that is lap is each about a minute and 13 seconds long. But we got there in the end. Finally, Rosella will win the second race, take maximum points for the round, ahead of Will Devenish and ahead of Seth Brown.
Yeah, brilliant drive from those at the front. Great work from Seth Brown as well. He recovered, I think, he drove at least one, if not two recovery drives. They very much had the practice from doing so in Dev Series, but yeah, I'm not sure if the team's going to pick him up for a slot or he's going to bring a new team into Supercars. But I think at this point, yeah, he's not going to be welcome in Super 2 anymore based on this performance tonight, which is more the power to him.
Ricardo 4th and Tara 5th. Daniel Cox got to 6th at the end of the day because Foley ended up off the road, so that's a 6th place finish for Cox. Brunswick 7th, Redmond 8th, so he actually got back past Foley after redressing the spot. Boak to 9th, and Lockie Lock was 10th.
We've missed something at the end there as well because Boak was running behind the other two PBF cars. Oh, there's been like 5-car scrap over 9th place. Okay.
Yeah, because everything got bundled up together where the redress was taking place at the start of the last lap.
It wasn't even that. It was coming down to the last couple of corners. There was like all 4 PBF cars were in a battle with Tim Redmond and Lockie Lock.
Yeah, that's right.
A couple of them got shoveled wide.
Yeah, so you got Brown and Foley, Zach Brown and Brent Foley 11th and 12th, McNichol 13th, and then you had Rutledge followed by Igmanis and Thrower. Brendan Ross 17th out of all of that. So it's not been a bad point scoring weekend for the Real Holden Pixel Racing team. And Bailey Hall 18th, Warwick and Callahan, the last couple of finishes in the race. So yeah, a bit to digest out of that one, I think, Brody.
Yeah, I'm going to start taking some notes somewhere. I can't use the regular channel because we're not advising people that we're going to be doing said things, but I will make some notes somewhere for myself for 2 weeks' time on who we do want to talk to from this race. But I'm definitely going to want to have a chat to Mr. Seth Brown because he's done a very good job, and I feel like we can almost guarantee the only reason he won't have a permanent car for next round is just by virtue of the fact it's 2 weeks between now and then, and whether he's already got a livery planned or not, I don't know. But the other thing, I wouldn't be surprised if we're trying to hold off on any file updates until we get stuff out for the Enduro Cup. So he might be in a guest car again in 2 weeks' time, but definitely Seth Brown. From the rest of the pile, I mean, we'd probably end up having a chat to the rest of the polls, the rest of the top sitters as well. So Will Devenish and Luke Rosella, and no doubt we'll catch them in 2 weeks' time. Anyway, just looking through the rest of the cars. I mean, Dane's had a strong performance as well. As a Noatara, a lot of the CRE guys had a pretty strong performance. Actually, I think of the lot, I'd probably swing Coxie in to speak on behalf of the team because in the end, a strong performance for Coxie in that second race to get up to 6th. And then who else have we got in here? Hans Brunswick. It's a strong race, but at the same time, we know this is kind of where Hans' pace is at, and he just had to get back from the back of the grid. Timmy's had a pretty good weekend, all things considered. So I'd probably throw Timmy in there, and actually, I'd probably throw Timmy in there, and I might also throw an idea of having a chat to Stuart McNichol on his Supercars debut. But that won't be happening tonight. If those drivers are racing in 2 weeks' time, we will be having a chat to some, if not all of them. I think as far as things sit for tonight, we're pretty much done. So I'll hand this back to you, Nether.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, mate. That's it's been an interesting night so far, and just confirming, we've decided to tell the drivers that there are no broadcast interviews tonight. It is a late night, and the broadcast has been going for 3 hours now. It's normally doesn't normally take that long for one of these shows, except for when we get to like Sandown or Bathurst or enduro races like that. So I do want to apologise now to those drivers that drove very, very well and probably deserved their opportunity to come up and have a chat with us. But it's just the letdown of others tonight that I think we've just decided, you know what, everybody needs to go and have a cool down and come back with clearer heads in 2 weeks when we get to Hidden Valley. So on behalf of the ASR team, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you and Lewis's Lewis Sim Network channel next week for the Development Series race. And following that, we will see you in 2 weeks' time for the Supercars Series race at Hidden Valley, which I hope and trust will be a bit more of a better performance. Drive safe, everyone. Thank you. Good night.